circus trying to find us out. But if you're looking for the truth, you got to find it out. NASA can't go to space, so we hit the roof. Get it? Hit the roof. And it all came to light with 200 proofs. Now I'm just really sick of people lying to me. So when I tell the truth, don't come crying to me. Pick up the phone, get on the line with me. Line with me. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, the FEIC 2019 wrap-up and aftermath. I am your host, Bob, Xanadude60, and we are back with another great show for you today. And today we're going to be talking about all the fun stuff that went on at FEIC 2019, both during and after the conference, and some of the highlights of it. And also some of the other interesting things, little news items and tidbits that came up, during the past couple of weeks that we have not been on the show. So I don't know how many people out there were actually able to attend the Flat Earth International Conference, or at least do the live stream, but to say that it was an epic success would be an understatement. It absolutely was fabulous. So we're really happy that we were able to get through it. And today we're just going to kind of highlight that. So before we get to introducing the cast, I'm going to make an announcement. I'm sure many of you people already have probably heard this, but 6 days ago, and Jaren will not be with us today because of this, but 6 days ago, unfortunately, Jaren's mom passed away, and it was really rather unexpected for him, as I'm sure a lot of these things actually are, but she kind of passed very quickly. It was unexpected, and he just went through, I believe, the funeral yesterday. So he's still, feeling a little bit of the pain, and our hearts go out to Jaren, and all of our love and everything. And we hope that everything gets back to normal as soon as possible. So Jaren will not be with us today, but I'm sure he's here with us in spirit, and we are going to go ahead and proceed, and hope that things get better for you, Jaren, and we'll see you probably next week. So until then, here's a first. We will be able to introduce first up from Argentina, Iru Landucci. Hey, Iru, how you doing today?
Hello, Bob. Hello, everyone. Doing fantastic. Here is summer. We enter into the summertime, so the weather is complete fabulous, and that is in some way is transmitted to the entire environment. The people are happy walking in the street, but the majority is under the matrix, believing that the earth is spinning and that kind of thing. So what are you gonna do? Call Globebusters. So now that is why we are here.
That's right. Just give us a call. We'll take care of all those problems. Well, beautiful. Yeah, I love summer. Summer is my second favorite season. I love spring the best, and then fall. Fall is probably my third favorite. So, and we are in fall now, but we've already had some pretty major snowstorms, and it's gotten fairly cold. But still the worst to come.
Here we have we start having in the news that yesterday was the most warm and hot day of the year, and just with that start talking about the global warming and blah blah blah. So it's hilarious,
Yeah, for sure. So okay, all right. So let's move on then. And next up, we have Ben Taboo Conspiracy, who was at the conference with us, and we are so thrilled that Ben that you could make it there and do the presentations with us. So welcome back, Ben. How you doing, man?
Well, the conference was awesome, but I've been sick since I've been back. I guess that's what happens when you go to these things. But yeah, I've been sick, trying to catch up on work, and working on a video right now. I was hoping to premiere it at Globebusters, but unfortunately just not quite done. So I'll have to put that out immediately afterwards. But it's another wide awake video, but it's very awesome.
Okay. Yeah, Wide Awake. Dave does such fabulous work. I really, I need to have him on because the only time he's been on, believe it or not, was back in August, I think, of 2017 during the eclipse. I believe Jaron had him on when we were in Alliance, Nebraska, watching the eclipse, and he does such fabulous work. I just think he's very underrated and doesn't get enough credit. So I'm glad you get a chance to pay homage to a lot of his great videos.
Yeah, I've really appreciated him and his friendship, and he's out there right now actually filming. So he keeps putting out the effort to prove the Earth is flat. So I wish there were more like him.
Yep, that's for sure. Well, it takes all kind to make this community. We've got activists, which honestly, I have nothing but respect for street activists. I personally don't think that it is exactly my calling. I think I can be fairly good at it if it's not, if it's in an environment, where we're at a meetup or something like that, and I'm talking to Globers, I don't have a problem with that. But watching these guys just go out and hit it raw with the public, yikes! That takes some special kind of cojones, which I'm not sure I have. So, so there you have it. All right, cool. And we also have joining with us again today is Dr. Rodrigo Ferrar Nunez. And Rodrigo, I was bummed out that you were not able to make it, but hopefully, did you get a chance to see any of it on streaming, or do we have to get you a streaming membership?
I didn't get a chance to look at the streams. I did see some of the presentations that were then posted in people's channels, like Jaren's and Ben's, and I really like Ben's presentation. I think it fits many questions that I got, and especially really very nice exchange with a friend of mine who's one of my best friends, who still I think is a baller. But I was talking about he basically has this amazing message he sends to me and talking about how to make a curvature test and how people should just go and do it and so on, thinking that nobody's done it before. And then I realized that I remember Ben's presentation and how clearly it lays out the evidence. And I see here, and what's the name of the guy who did this? Andrew, right?
Andrew Lanks, and he is Friend of Yahweh, and he is so talented. I can't even.
Andrew, yeah.
Unbelievable.
He asked me to look over this because he's going to make a Brazilian Portuguese version. So I need to take a look at the translation. So if he's listening, I'm going to do that. I'm really busy. I'm going to have to throw it in there in line. So the next few days are going to get it done. And
so this may be a really ignorant question, but do they rap in Portuguese?
Yeah, they do, man. They do. My brother does.
Yeah.
My brother.
What are you talking about, man?
Well, I said I was ignorant. What can I say?
There's already flat Earth, Brazilian flat Earth rappers already come out. But now in Brazil, what's going on is there's a lot of drama because of what happened after the conference, and we have these channels with kind of fighting each other and attacking one another. It's kind of infighting, kind of like. It's very similar to what you've seen when Robbie first started to come out, tried to do the conference, and how many different attacks he had. Kind of similar. People sometimes who are jealous, or maybe they don't do anything. They stay in their homes usually, and they kind of. What happens there is that there's some people who have large channels. Their channels are kind of, battling for. Basically, it's weird, and there's a lot of preachiness I find in the whole thing. I'm still, getting involved in it. And last Thursday, I was in the long kind of live conversation with them, dealing with the problem with this main opponent that's come out and made the same kind of arguments you guys have been the target of the flat sign being the Masonic. I think when they put the hand in the neck or something like this, and trying to say that everyone in the Brazilian conference, they were doing that and so on. They're in the space that's a Masonic space, but then this guy speaking from Google, which is a Masonic space, and there's this whole discussions about hypocrisy and then what seems to be the case is that what's going on is because of the conference, the organizers of the conference got a lot of media. and they've been in the not just in that comedy thing program, but also in other more serious kind of network TV shows where they're not ridiculed. And in fact, I know somebody, I'm very close to someone who knows the presenter in one of these networks. And I saw the interaction between Siddhartha and the guy in the network, absolutely very respectful. And this is a network that's reaching, millions of people a day. So the thing is, and the other people who's just on YouTube, I guess they get a little jealous or something. I don't know. That part is odd. And it's one of the things that makes me a little bit iffy, because this whole thing about preaching and saying the word of God all the time instead of doing and then doing this and then attacking people at the same time, which doesn't seem very be aligned. So that's going on, and you've seen this before, right?
Yeah, and it at least I know. I don't know if it makes me feel any better that it doesn't just happen in the USA and the English speaking countries, but I think that a lot of people's egos really get tied up in this, and that in a combination of people will try and diss the conference because they can't afford to go, and I get that sort of. I mean that that they're upset that they can't afford to go, or let alone that the conference prices are so high. But then you also have airfare and you have hotels. I mean, it is so easy to wrap up $1,000 in going to a conference. It's almost a given for sure. But but that doesn't mean that we try and Robbie made every provision for people to be able to at least kind of be there in spirit by making the live stream available and affordable, which I think was $40 is a pretty reasonable price for that. And and beyond that, people are going to ultimately wind up streaming it on their YouTube channels anyway, and Robbie knows that, everybody knows that that's going to happen. So all you have to do is just wait a few days, and eventually it's going to be out on YouTube for free anyway. So what do you do? But it's unfortunate that so many people's egos get tied up in this, and we kept getting the same old rhetoric,
right? Any little problem that they find, they will nitpick. It's like even it happened with the trolling with Logan Paul as well. That even if you manage to explain the whole thing, people still, it's like behind the curve. It has a life of its own, and it had a life of its own in Brazil. People being very mad at Mark Sargent and so on, and then
I'm sure.
I think not so much at you, but it's still. And I had to just say, but have you seen Mark Sargent saying bad things about anybody or targeting anyone?
Never.
And coming out.
Never. Mark Sargent does not speak ill of anyone.
That's what I told him. And what is he doing? He's out there talking to people. He's talking to high school people. Anybody comes to him, just as he did in the beginning, because he was the person who put his name out and of course he's going to be targeted. And in the case of Behind the Curve, he was deliberately targeted. And we even covered this all together. So it was a malicious piece, and we can prove it. And we haven't even been challenged on this. My analysis of even the interview of the makers of this, where I show that you can tell they feel ashamed in some level. And one guy does, at least the director, it seems, but the other guy is really, the editor really doesn't care. He did it on purpose. So.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, well. But yeah, I mean, so many people have this big problem with Mark Sargent, and I never have understood it. I think the whole notion of him or Patricia Steer especially, of being some sort of a CIA operative is the most ludicrous, ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my life. I mean, talk about grasping at straws. And of course, unfortunately, it was Eric Dubay that really got all this stuff started. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we would get flack about. It's like, well, why didn't you guys invite Eric Dubay? And it's like, Eric Dubay has been invited, but he refers to the conferences as shillfests. In other words, he's saying that everybody that attends these conferences or presents at them are essentially shills, like we're all out to do harm to the flat Earth community and the flat Earth movement in general. When in fact, it's like, look, you have to understand that people each have their own ways of presenting flat Earth, and it takes all kinds.
Yeah, in Brazil they say we're all adults. We can decide for ourselves what to do and what to say, and we have our own voices and stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's like, and if most flat earthers are smart enough to get here, in the first place using their own discernment, give them a little bit of credit, for being able to, carrying this forward. And a lot of people, would fit into that same boat. So, yeah, I just don't get some of the arguments and some of the complaints. It doesn't make any sense, but we try to make it as all inclusive as possible. Of course, obviously you can't invite every single speaker because it just gets to
Yeah.
be kind of overload. But
And of course, everybody has to decide for themselves, and no single person is ever going to please everyone, right? You're always going to find something you don't like about someone, but that's just a rule for anything, anywhere, and that you need to learn to accept that people are different. I think it's what I call the appreciation of character, which is the more you get to know people, the more you understand they're unique characters, and they're all, on their own, really. And you decide for yourself what to take, if you're going to take the good, if you're going to focus on things that seem trivial. I don't know. Yeah, knowing how to catch your own mistakes and moving forward and recognizing that, everyone's going to make mistakes. So.
Yep, for sure. But anyway, all that aside,
Yep.
and all the complaints, it is what it is, and you're right. You can't please everybody all the time, nor do we want to. Everybody has the option of simply not going, not participating, not supporting. We're not twisting anybody's arm, but I can tell you this: the people that were there absolutely had an epic time. We had a great time, and I think every conference, we learn a little bit more about what to do and what not to do. And I think some of the biggest suggestions that we got this time, and I agree with this, by the way, and I think those who are will be working on the next FEIC have definitely taken this into consideration. But a lot of people say that instead of having so many speakers and so many presenters, there needs to be more interaction, more social time, and more like social type activities. And I agree with this, honestly, because when you get presenter after presenter after presenter, I mean, literally, if you're sitting there all day long, it'll put you to sleep at some point, right?
Well, I've talked a little bit about this, and what one solution would be to follow a different model, that instead of having presenters give hour-long presentations, for you to divide in different panels and different. So one is historical. Ito may want to present in the historical panel and talk about Jesuits, for instance. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And you get the geophysical stuff, where you get more the geophysical aspects of it. So then you have 5 or 6 people making shorter presentations, and that becoming a whole piece of its own. And then other people doing on different. You have to decide. The organizers would have to decide what are the main themes. Give the conference a kind of theme, and then the people that want to present. Usually, academic conferences are like that. That's why I'm saying, like, you make a theme and you put out a call. People send their papers. There's a little bit of triage. Usually, everyone gets in because they're really large. They have thousand delegates, but you have to find the right size. But if you make the presentations a little smaller, the sessions themselves can have discussions and roundtables and
Exactly.
those sessions can also have, by writing or making a little video or making a little paper, you use a little bit of the budget to have someone write out what happened in all those presentations, and then you have little either magazines or little books that you illustrate, and that sets it up for the next year. It creates a little historical record, and everyone's an author. It's an interesting way to move forward, so that people who are asking questions and coming up with their own research can present, but then instead of making this whole long, because it is important, the long things, because you give your whole perspective and so on, but that has been done, and now we're getting so many people, so you can have different kind. You can have one that's based on testimonies, for example. People want to give their testimonies of transformation, or it depends on the themes that seem more important for the people who are organizing and want to participate. And then you have to decide, where you draw the line and who may or may not present in a way that's a little bit, by having presentations that are shorter, you can have more people presenting, and that by itself will make the whole thing more social. And you can then have different things like games or other kinds of activities you have to think about. But it should be, like a more like a fair almost. I don't know. Than just
I get it. But days. So again, it's a live and learn. Not live and learn. It's a process of learning and getting better. But I have to say that Robbie Davidson has just done an absolutely epic job in the 4 conferences that he has done. He will be forever remembered, for what he's done for the community overall. And, when this does continue forward, as many of you people may or may not know, and, I could be putting the cart before the horse here, but Robbie Davidson, just a few days after FEIC announced on Facebook that Dallas would be his last conference. And he did an in-depth show last night on his radio show about that, about why he felt that way. And, he's not leaving the community, nothing like that. He's absolutely staying in the community, but he just felt like, it was his calling to get the ball rolling. He put on 4 fantabulous conferences, and now he's wanting to hand the torch off. And for that, Robbie, you are absolutely amazing. And I'm sure that those of us who are going to be participating in moving these conferences forward, we will be using a lot of the things that you came up with and trying to continuously improve, like you always wanted to. So, thank you, Robbie Davidson, so much for that. You are awesome. So, all right, so let's.
And those conferences were just fantastic. Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much courage it takes to take the lead on something like this and actually deliver the goods. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. So, Ben, Iru, you guys were there. What were some of the highlights? What were some of the things that you guys really liked about the conferences, and some of the interactions that you had? I don't know which one of you wants to start first, but go for it.
Yeah, I can start it. For me, it's first of all, I am also, like an organizer of conference, because I organize a few, like 4 since I've been in Flat Earth, 2 in Barcelona, which for me it's really difficult because it's other country, other budget, things like that. But it's really small one. Rodrigo participating in the last edition, and when you see how Robbie, put all together, it's amazing. It's super complicated. He afford everything. He organized internally with his wife, and of course, a few other people. But I mean, that it's technically speaking, it is move a step forward, the flat earth movement itself. That is why I don't understand why the people complain about this kind of conference. The imagination of the people believe that after any conference, Robbie go and buy a private airplane, something like that, and no, I mean, it's for me, for example, anytime that I organize a conference, I just put $15 or $20 the entrance, because I just cover 3 hours of rent, and just the one screen with a one projector, 2 microphones, and the rest is going for in my case, for the ticket fly, and pay some food for the people that participate, and maybe give to people as a gift some T-shirt or things like that. But when you see Robbie conference, we are talking 3 days, 2 full days of all the equipment, screen, all the live streaming equipment with the people, 3 cameras, two showrooms, for one for the main stage, the other for the secondary stage. I mean, it's huge. I mean, you can even comprehend maybe how much of his effort you need to put to accomplish something like that. So that is why I don't understand the people that have these hallucinations of that. Okay, I made one conference and I became rich and I don't have any more troubles in my life, things like that. It's for me that it's insane even think about it. But everyone is free to believe whatever they want. But the most important thing is that anytime that one of these conferences came out, the media starts speaking, more people come together and start, research flat Earth. It's more, it has like a repercussion all over the place, because it also came to Argentina, anytime, everything that happened in the United States, at least in terms of Spanish community and also English community, it's made bounce all over the place. So anytime that I assist or someone put together a conference like this, the media here in Argentina and Chile, Uruguay, blah blah blah, start speaking about it. It's not just something that happened and just be in United States. So that is why Robbie put the flat Earth to other level from the beginning, from the first, and for me it changed my complete life. Be in the flat Earth community, not just in the Spanish community, but with all of you, and I mean not just the Globebusters team, but I mean all the people that I met in this fall conference. It's really changed my way of living, and I assume that in different conditions and different situations that happen to all the people that assist to this conference, because after all, one of the most important highlight is how you communicate with real people, with real experience. How you start, talking about real life events and that kind of thing. But that is the most important thing after all.
Yeah, it's crazy that the guys in Brazil, the people who complain about the conference, they don't see that. They think that just by YouTube videos you can do more. It's really weird. And we know that's not exactly what you're saying.
No.
I'm just remembering Barcelona, we went to dinner together, everyone. I mean, how, that's so much time talking to people, sitting with Alex and Mike and you and everyone. It's a whole new ball game, and it creates a whole, you understand where people are really coming from, and you understand how people actually are.
Maybe you can do how many videos you want on YouTube or any other platform, and never going to have the same impact as a real life event. And especially when you have 700 people came together for all over the world and assist to the conference and support this idea, this way of research, this way of living. So nothing is going to have the same kind of impact as a real life event. It doesn't matter how much follower you have on YouTube,
and that's the whole thing with being happy with other people who are happy to see you, and you're happy to see them. That just generates, it's kind of like this harmonics that go, then it's incredible. You cannot do that on online.
Yep, sure. So okay, and Ben, this is I know that you've been to other ones as well, but this is your first time at I believe at presenting at a U.S. conference. What was your take on all of it?
Well, I have to say that the speeches were fabulous. Jaron had an awesome speech. Paul on the plane. Your speech was terrific. Ira had a good one. I was able to catch a lot of that one. Dave Marsh. I mean, there was just so many. And the comedy special by Owen Benjamin, that was great. A little raunchy for my likes, but it was still it was a lot of fun. It actually helped liven the mood a little bit. And but overall, the thing that was the best for me was the friendship. I have lifelong friends there, and just to actually meet and talk with the Globebusters, with Rob Skiba, with Daryl Marble, just to hang out with these wonderful people like Shelley Lewis and her new documentary, and to talk with them. And the friendships that I have now with these people, with everyone, is just amazing. And so many people come up and just talk to you and say they thank you for the work that you've done. And overall with what we do, we're made fun of a lot and we're ridiculed a lot, especially even by our own family members. And to actually have these people come up and give you a hug and thank you for the work that we put in, that was something special for me. I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I would echo all those same sentiments. This is my fourth one, and actually kind of fifth after Flattoberfest, and every time it just keeps getting better. So, all right. So what I want to do is one of the things I've been playing. First of all, the first video that I was playing was something that was premiered at FEIC. I believe it was on Friday night, and this was a piece of art that was put together by Andrew Links, friend of Yahweh, and several other people. There's a big credit list at the end, but this thing was absolutely epic. The amount of time that went into this, I think they said something like 8 or 9 months worth of time went into this little, what was it, a 13-minute piece essentially. But this is the kind of dedication that people have, and I mean, it's just absolutely amazing that all that work would go in for something that was just so fleeting, but everybody absolutely loved it. Just incredible work. And then another thing that I was showing was, of course, the where is that? The Greg Reese report from InfoWars. He was actually there live, and we had InfoWars there. We had a couple of reporters there. We had a guy from Coast to Coast. And we'll be talking about him and his impressions on that later, but he actually wrote a very favorable piece as well. So we had this, and we had Greg Reese talking about some of the things that were going on. And it sounds to me like Greg Reese is pretty much on board as a flat earther. Alex Jones may not be, but I think a lot of his staff are definitely coming over. And that was pretty awesome. And we actually got some really favorable press. I mean, I was really, really surprised. We had one crew there from Jimmy Kimmel that was basically trying to, cause a lot of problems and stir up trouble. And I don't think they've aired it, unless I'm wrong, but I think that they realized that, ultimately what they did made them look more foolish than what they were trying to make us look like. So I don't think they've done anything on it. So for them, it was kind of a bust. But I want to play the local Channel 11 CBS broadcast that was an interview.
So mad.
I know.
Guys. I need those 50 seconds to came to Argentina and say, hey, for the first time I participate in one local news in the United States, and they take away only 15 seconds of saying something. I'm so angry with this guy.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, and everybody had a lot of really good stuff to say, and I think they talked to us for 10 minutes or so, something like that, and they had to condense it down into a 1.5-minute piece.
Yeah,
but
no, I know that.
But I mean,
third world countries, it's taken away.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what Iru said was fabulous, and so I'm going to go ahead and play this. And this really was not bad at all. They weren't making fun of us, no mockery or anything. And I have to thank Cammie, my wife, because initially they wanted to interview her because she was a presenter there. And she's like, oh, no. Who you want to interview are the Globebusters. And so, they kind of rounded us up. And here was the end result of that. Here we go, guys.
They are a group who believes that the Earth is flat, and their annual meeting of the minds is taking place right here in North Texas.
CBS 11's Brooke Rogers spent the day covering the first day of the Flat Earth Convention International Conference, and she joins us now live with the story. So what do people believe, Brooke?
Well, Brooke, this conference started this morning. It goes until tomorrow, late afternoon and the evening. There's 500 to 600 participants here, all who believe that what we know about science is wrong.
What we need is a camera and a lake. You can go out there, look through the camera, and do the math and realize that we see too far. That is the fundamental basis of the flat Earth.
They're called flat earthers, and they passionately support a theory, advanced mainly through YouTube, that everything we've learned about the Earth is a lie.
We've concluded that there is no curvature to this Earth, there is no motion to this Earth, it cannot be measured.
At a two-day conference in Frisco, speakers and models seek to prove that the Earth is an infinite plane or dome, and that the idea that it spins is one of many lies.
I hate to use the analogy, but it's very simple, similar to something like the Truman Show.
They say the horizon is just too long and that NASA is an entertainment business. Jaron Campanella, one of the co-hosts of the show Globebusters, says becoming a flat earther was life-changing.
It's made me a better person. I think we would all say that it really does bring it home, lets you know that you are created, you're not just insignificant. So it's just a real new, eye-opening experience, and that's why I think people love it.
Several former NASA astronauts have responded to the movement by saying they know the Earth is round.
Yeah, they know the Earth is round.
Yeah, of course, man. It's not spherical; it's round.
Yeah, because they've seen it.
So-
They've seen it from space. What
Yeah, they're
else would
getting
you
the
expect?
blood clots from too much jumping on their zero-G planes. It's probably what it is.
Maybe. Yeah, could be.
Yeah, no kidding. God, that is such a joke. I couldn't believe
Yeah,
that.
something that, and sorry for expanding a little bit in that comment, because something that turned me crazy sometimes is the microphone trick, because for me it's like of course everybody knows that they use multiple technologies. It's not just a zero-G plane. They also have harnesses. They also have augmented reality and post-production. It's different. It's different in the different scenarios. For example, when they go live, they use some techniques. When they present, some kind of post-production entertainment piece of art, they use another technique, like some movie, like Hollywood. But when they are on live stream, that microphone turned me crazy, because I trying to say what is that? It's just like augmented reality. It's some kind of holographic lenses that they use. It's just or is something more, but really more easy, like like a plastic microphone. Yeah, no, like a mic, maybe like a empty plastic microphone, really lighter, with some kind of helium inside, some kind of helium balloon inside, and it's floating, like when you find equilibrium between oxygen and helium.
That's the kind of thing that could be tested. If you make a case and put helium inside, see if you make
yes,
a microphone.
I try it when we launched our balloon the last year. I try, but I have a really heavy microphone, so I can accomplish that.
It could even be made with a super light material. It could easily be made.
Exactly, yeah, could be something like that. That is the only thing that turned me crazy, because I really was in the Potty, I am not going to pronounce well, but Potter's Clay YouTube channel, that something was really called my attention, and then I'm going to share my screen some moment and present it. But he showed like a pre-training astronaut, I don't know what his name is. Like before they go into the mission, they study and
they call it.
No, yeah, they train here on Earth, so they are like in this kind of production meeting, with the astronaut and the technicians on Earth, with NASA, talking about this, about that, and they have like a box that supposedly is gonna be some special tools to repair something outside the ISS, and that special tool, a box tool that is on the table, suddenly they start to have this part of the toolbox that for themselves start jumping and keep floating in the midair. Like something that was like a prop from Hollywood set, they have already set some kind of wire, a metal wire inside, or some kind of spring that make this fantasy that the things are like floating. And sometimes when I see a lot of cable that mess around in the ISS, I always start thinking like maybe they could have some kind of wire inside, or they can have some helium inside to make this cable, make this like floating effect, things like that. But the microphone turning me crazy. I just want to say that.
If also there's a possibility that if in that moment they are in free fall, then it would be okay to just release the microphone. Could be a real microphone.
But that will be so complicated.
But that doesn't usually happen. Because you can tell that they're on
Yeah.
wires on those that you're talking about, the live ones that being caught on
Yeah,
wires.
and in fact, they play. They use the microphone trick as a magician when when magician try to distract all the time, because all they have is that these 2 or 3 things when they go live. I mean, right? Like they trying to all the time that okay, we are in zero G. Look the mic, and they spinning and play with the microphone and things like that. Of course, that was not the case 10 years before. It's like they getting better in technology or in the way that they trick people. So if you start compare to the last years, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they changed a lot of things because they came more, they perfectionist a little more. But that's something that I really like to. I'm still waiting for that tiny error that unlock the secret of microphone space.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to think that there's something with helium. Like I've been very bugged by this question because you see helium balloons for children and so on, and I seen a guy on this stunt show that I watch flying on a chair with a kind of propeller in the back and with helium balloons, and he went like for 100 kilometers on it flying. So why don't we have different kinds of things in the house that, because you can get balloon. If I get a bunch of children's balloon and put inside the box, will that box lift off? It should at some point, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it makes sense that if you put encase helium in instead of a balloon, you have it in format of a microphone. You can balance this thing off.
After all, it's Hollywood. It's Hollywood with a really big budget and with all the things that they need, and it's just trickery. I mean, Hollywood has a really more complex live event, because when they shoot some films, they don't use all the time CGI because it's more difficult. So in terms of the real props, Hollywood has a really, really wide variety of techniques.
Array of techniques to use to do the illusions. Yeah.
Jaron and I posited a long time ago when we were watching some of the takeoffs of the rockets, the big heavy rockets, and it's like they don't behave like any normal rocket at all. Normal rockets, when you fire them off, I mean, they just go like a bat out of hell straight up. But these things, they lumber. It takes them 4 or 5 seconds to even clear the launch tower. And we were wondering, it's like, how are they keeping this vertical stability, going? You don't see these little nozzles, going back and forth all the time. And frankly,
they also wobble,
I'm not sure.
Don't they? Kind of funny wobble.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're pausing. We're saying, okay, so what makes sense to us is to have basically the entire nose of that rocket, completely filled up with helium, which would then provide vertical stability. And then they launch off, and maybe when it starts turning sideways before they hit their 100-kilometer limit, and they have to take it out to the ocean and ditch it, they probably bleed off a lot of that helium, and then down it goes. Because I think it's pretty obvious by now, at least to anybody that is even halfway awake, that these rockets are not going to space. They go up, 30 seconds later, they're horizontal, and then another 30 seconds after that, they are completely going down. Children can see it. It's amazing. I love that one children's clip where they're going, "Oh, something must be wrong. How come it's going down?" And the parent, of course, is saying, "Well, it's going over the curvature of the Earth." It's like, oh my God,
the Earth is spinning.
They're spinning. I did that.
Yeah.
It's so absurd.
Yeah, and in fact, you can see a lot of time, and I presented that in another conference, when they use this kind of zero-G setup that the astronaut is playing with some toy, and suddenly the toy starts falling down. And that is when you can see that, okay, you run out of time of the zero-G effect, because maybe the planes start to stabilize again. So they are
say
playing
the gravity pockets. They lie.
The gravity pocket. What a bullshit! I mean, you can invent it whatever you want. Gravity pocket. That is the most insulting thing that they ever came across. This is a gravity pocket. I want to see that in the science book.
No, did you see what they wrote about the eyes of the astronauts? We're going to see that later because that's some hilarious twists of words I've ever seen. They talk about their eyes having globe flattening.
Yeah,
it's
that's
weird
crazy.
stuff.
Okay, so all right, we're kind of straying a little bit. Let's get back to the conference a little bit. There are a few more things I want to cover about that.
Sorry.
But that's okay. But I wanted to talk about some of the people that actually showed up at the conference, and this to me was bizarre. I mean, this guy Danny Faulkner, right, shows up and has been at every single conference since the Raleigh conference, right? Or at least in America, I shouldn't say. I don't think he was at the Canada or the European conferences, but all the American conferences. He goes there and he writes. He furiously takes notes on everybody, and then he goes back to his little page on answers in Genesis, and tries to debunk everything. And it's so funny because the guy is so unbelievably arrogant. He goes, "Oh well, flat earthers, they just haven't asked me. I can answer any of these questions and debunk any of it." And so Nathan Thompson was, kind of on his butt about it, and just follow him around. And you gotta love Nathan, man. He has no filter, and I love that about Nathan. But so he's following Danny around, and ultimately at this point, after Danny sits down, he says, "Okay, Danny, so how can you have gas next to a vacuum?" And Danny's just sitting there, ignoring him, and he's looking right at him, and then he starts, trying to change the subject by saying, "Well, I didn't give you permission to videotape me or anything like that." Yet, I mean, they're spending, $1,000 at least to go down there, and this guy is so disingenuous. I have a book here written by him called Falling Flat, and of course, on the cover of Falling Flat, it has the Earth that is pictured as floating out in space, right? I mean, he knows that's not what we believe, and yet he does this. His explanation to a friend of mine was, "Well, he's just trying to be provocative." It's like, yeah, provocative, whatever, because that's all you have is to misrepresent.
He's cashing in, kind of a mercenary, trying to take a ride on it and get this book to come out as some sort of authoritative thing.
Yeah,
bullshit propaganda that is.
And he's clueless. And of course, if you guys didn't see my presentation, it was basically very similar to what Ben did in his presentation in Europe. And Jaron had covered it before also, and that's the lumens on the moon, the luminosity of it. And when you actually reverse engineer the 1 lux or 0.1 lux, you get a number that on the moon goes into the quadrillions of lux. Which is brighter than the sun. It would vaporize anybody that would be, standing in that particular thing. And of course, I asked Danny about that before I did the presentation, and he sent me this link, which essentially what he did is he completely rewrote the math for it. Something as simple as the inverse square law. He rewrites the math, and he actually shows it going dimmer as it gets towards the moon. What was his excuse for this? Well, because your field of view is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like, that's preposterous because we're taking, something at a meter. So
he gets closer to a light, and that gets softer.
Then it gets dimmer. Yes, that was
eye cuts. Yeah, you have eye cuts, and it's trying. The aperture of the eye is self. Automate.
Yeah, I mean, so
is he a creationist or something, or is he an evolutionist type of guy?
Well, no, he's I'm not sure what he is. He's certainly not a very good representative for the religious community. Let's put it that way. But as an astrophysicist, and of course, he tried to tell me at the Denver conference last year that, well, they didn't need to know the distance or the size or anything like that to tell us anything about these stars. They can figure it all out mathematically. And I mean, that conversation got heated, to say the least, because I mean, he was just blowing so much smoke up my butt, and I was calling him out on it. I was just telling him, "You're a complete liar, Danny. There's no way you can do this, and you'll never be able to prove it." So anyway, so I gave him all that information, and I was appalled at reading his response. He completely rewrites it, completely takes it away from the inverse square law of light, and shows the moon actually getting dimmer as you approach it, which is
Yeah,
utterly ridiculous.
It's the proof that you can do anything with math. You just create your own equation and you apply the numbers and you get what you want, right? He just proves it. It's that's what he did. It's like these guys shooting themselves on the foot all the time. It's funny.
So anyway, so he was there, and he was one of the least obnoxious. We also had other people there that were Globers. Gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head who some of the other ones were, but it'll come to me. But
People
one of the
were
other
banned,
guys,
right? Kicked
there
out.
there were people that banned. This guy is one of them, right? And this, if you guys don't know who this guy is George Nutsack, and George Nutsack is this troll that he is the one that basically went after Brian Mullen. Said that he called up his employer, he called up the professional engineers board, trying to get him A, fired, and B, get his PE license pulled. He has come after me saying, well, you're not a PE, Bob, you're a liar and a fraud. Now, of course, I've never claimed to be a PE. He's like, you don't have to be a PE registered with the PE Society to perform engineering things. So this guy has tried to cause harm to me. Unfortunately, he can't do a lot because I own my own company. He's been threatening for the last 3 years. Well, I'm going to take you down, Bob. I'm going to have the law come after you. And of course, nothing's happened. I mean, because he's just so full of crap. But I mean, he's this little he's this little runt guy that, I mean, he was obviously the kid that
He's a little Gollum. It's like a Gollum.
Yeah,
He's a crusader.
He was the kid that obviously everybody beat up in school. I mean, and you can tell why. I mean, he's so pathetic that, he comes all the way down here from Michigan, and he's sitting there in the bar, just, acting like he's totally cool. And he thinks that people are not going to, confront him, especially after what he did or tried to do with Brian Mullen. I mean, this guy is such a POS, I can't even begin to describe it. And, so and I got to tell you guys, this is one of the highlights of FEIC for me. I mean, I was infuriated that he was there, but I kind of got my revenge because, I said, look, this guy has been threatening me, not that I'm scared of him by any means, but he's been threatening me for 3 years. He is not going to come in to the conference. And I made my case, and security agreed with me. Robbie agreed with me. And so he tried to come in and he got booted, right? So then he tried to sneak back in. He went back to somebody that didn't have information that he wasn't supposed to be there. He actually got a tag, came in, he's all dressed up like a flat earther, and I spotted him again. And this time I went to the state trooper that was there and had him, boot him out on his butt and said that if he returned, he would be arrested. As simple as that. Now, we couldn't boot him off the premises because he was a hotel guest. But I am happy to say that I was the one that got George Nutsack booted from the conference, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I cannot stand this clown, and it just really did me a lot of good to do that. So, but I just don't understand why these people want to do this. Why they come there. And apparently, I guess Team Skeptic was another person that might have been there. They were trying to pick fights. One of them went up and was knocking Nathan Thompson's hat off of his head, and then literally trying to pick fights and get into physical altercations, so that they could just derive some sensationalism. It's like these people are unbelievable losers. That they would do this.
Instead of, they have no arguments. They've been caught with their pants down so many times. The astrophysicist was humiliated by Wakey, and then they show up and that's a new tactic. It's kind of trying to pick fights. Wow, what you're going really to prove that your ball is spinning in the space like that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and so on this one, Nathan Thompson's coming up and talking to him. And, he grabs Nathan's phone and he throws it. And, of course, all the ballers are saying, "Oh, you're interrupting this guy in the middle of his dinner." It's like, for God's sakes, the guy comes down, flies over 1,000 miles to cause a ruckus at a conference. He's sitting there in the lunchroom saying, "Bob Nodell, I'm going to come after you," stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh, really? I think the guy deserves anything that he gets. So, it's just unbelievable. They had people that were spitting in his little buddies were spitting in people's face. I think one of them spit in Flat Earth Fokker's face. It's just like, wow, these guys are so desperate. But, that's what we're up against. They have no argument, so they have to come there and literally try and start fights and spit in people's face and grab their cameras and throw them across the room and scream and cause ruckuses.
All these guys.
I know some of them were asked to leave. I know George was asked to leave because I was 100% at the lead of that one, and I could not have been happier. But I mean, this is just unbelievable. What do you do with people like this? But that is really, it tells a story about how desperate the ballers are and what it is this battle has devolved into for them.
It is kind of criminal, though. It's a kind of persecution of a group. If you've done that against, someone, any kind of ethnic group, let's say, that would be a kind of hate crime kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And of course, and I have to tell you another thing. The guy that was there reporting for Coast to Coast AM actually had an opportunity to talk with George, right? And after he was done with him, he came back and he goes, that guy is completely psychopathic. He's completely deluded. I mean, he's out of his mind. I mean, so yeah, he made a great impression on the press there, right? And this is a guy that's supposed to be some respectable dude, that the ballers all look up to, and he's just a pathetic little troll. So
wow.
Anyway, but yeah, so that was some of the other things that went on that it was just utterly unbelievable that the level that they have dropped to. So all right, so we will leave him alone, and suck it, George Nutsack, you joke. Anyway, all right, so one other thing that went on there is, of course, everybody got a copy of the Flat Earth Clues book, The End of the World, which was really cool. And then Mark came out. And not only was he giving away free links to the audiobook while he was there, but then he came out and he posted the entire audiobook for anybody that wants to have it for free. It's 5.5 hours, which is really, really cool of Mark Sargent. Again, here's somebody that is selflessly just giving all the time and, gets a bad rap for it, stuff like that. So, yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
That was very awesome.
It really was.
It's just awesome of Mark to do that.
Yep. So, all right. So I think, let me go through this. I think that's all I have. This is one other thing that happened, guys, and this is really cool. I don't know how many of you saw Cami and Zach's presentation, or even FE Core's work, that they were initially doing, talking about apparent positions of sun and stars. And, if we're constructing like somewhat of a biblical model and we're describing a firmament would be, at least the way I read it, is kind of a chamber area. There's a lower limit to it, and there's an upper limit to it, and then the stars and the sun and the moon are contained within. And so, we've talked several times about the apparent position of the sun and the moon, and we've talked about the lensing effects that will give that, and also the dome structure itself, assuming there is one, which I, believe there is, and that's, my opinion. I've never made that a secret. But Chris Pontius has this little, it's like a parabolic dish. It almost looks like your typical satellite dish, except it's clear and it's reflective. You can see right through it. And as you can see right here, you can see the star that's kind of floating out behind it. Now, on the wall behind him, and you're going to see this in just a second, you can actually see, I'm going to play this as we're going. So let's do this. So there's a star that is mounted on the wall, and we're all sitting here completely tripping out because look what it's doing. Look at that star. It is as plain as day there. It didn't matter what angle you were looking at it from. You could go all the way around it, above it, below it, whatever, and it was simply there. And everybody was getting the same perspective on it. It was just bizarre how this was working. So this was like a huge confirmation to some of the things that Cami and Zach were talking about, as well as the idea of the sun, moon, and stars being within this firmament that would have an upper and lower limit to it. So, I mean, just look at that. That is absolutely astounding. And in a minute here, we're going to actually pan around and you're going to see the star mounted on the wall behind it. And what was really cool is the further away from the dish that you got, the more pronounced and the more incredibly 3D this effect became, and the more vibrant it became. Absolutely unbelievable stuff. So, and this was taken at Chris Pontius's shop. We all went there on Sunday.
Is this glass or is it something else?
It's just a piece of plastic. It's shaped in a
Plastic.
parabola. Yeah.
Right.
Can you believe that? I mean, look at that star. And of course, like I said, you're going to see behind it what it's actually reflecting. But if the sun is indeed a projection source, which many people believe it is, I don't believe that it's any nuclear reacting ball that's up there. Some people have posited that, it's actually coming from a projection emanating from the northern pole. Well, that's entirely possible. And this is a real practical demonstration that shows that is entirely possible. But yeah, needless to say, everybody was completely flipping out there. Rob Skiba was there, Sheila Skiba, Nathan Thompson was there. Everybody.
Is that the star that's reflecting, the one that's on the wall?
Yeah, you're going to see. No, not that one. It's the one behind him. It's
Right.
actually lit up. You're going to see it here in just a second. But yeah, we were all right. It's right above the bar here. Just like he's going to pan up to it, and I'll freeze it, and you'll see where it is. So I don't know. I think this is Zach's camera work. There it is. Okay, so you see that? There it is. It's a little thing that's on the wall. It's just mounted up there. And that's what it's reflecting. And it's giving this incredible, reflection. So that was something that was really, really cool. And I hope a lot of people really take off with this and start exploring this idea of, what could be giving us our apparent positions of the sun, moon, and stars. And also why, when if you triangulate on the sun, moon, and stars, and if you add parallax, well, then they all come back to be about 234,000 miles away. Now, if you don't put in the parallax, then they all come up to be about 3,400 miles away. And that is the sun, moon, and stars. But of course, the ballers don't really want to touch that. But as soon as you try and triangulate from a third position, all of a sudden, all bets are off. All the numbers come in wrong. Everything is wrong. Why? Because you're trying to triangulate on something that is apparently there, but not really there.
Yeah, this really ties up with what Ido has already shown in his model of this, because he has a model exactly of this and the behavior of the sun. And then from the inside also, how the sun would be projected among the clouds, that kind of footage. That's exactly what's going on here, right? And it also ties up with Zach's presentation, how in different, what you just said exactly, the different positions, and how the apparent sun is going to be literally just like this, a projection, right? For each observer.
Yes, and it's the
same. Are we
same.
talking about it as like a firmament, or are we saying the atmosphere actually kind of captures the image of the sun or the stars?
I think that it would be a firmament, Ben, personally. I mean, this may be able to be replicated. And we know that, if you put the magnifying glass, like everybody's seen the demonstration with those half-dome magnifying glasses, that they will give also an apparent position. So, one could make the case, well, it's the lensing properties of the atmosphere that are doing this. And that is very viable. But this is another alternative because, again, if you really take the description of the firmament, having an upper and lower limit, and if it's dome shaped, then you are talking about a parabola, which can actually project an apparent position of an image, just like what we're seeing here. So it's just another thing to throw into the mix for people to consider, because this is really an amazing phenomenon. None of us ever expected to see anything like that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. So, yeah. So, take with you from that what you will, but I certainly know that
it's pretty much, isn't it very much like holograms work, right? It's pretty much exactly the same, only holograms do something slightly different. And you've probably seen that those holographic universe kind of models. I mean, probably some sort of, the electric universe combined with the holographic universe might be an interesting avenue to look into. But, it's linked to this.
Yeah, so Rodrigo Cami said, tell Rodrigo if the firmament is a vault of looking glass, it would function as a natural hologram emitter. And yeah, I would have to agree with that. So anyway, so that was just another thing. And I mean, Chris Pontius, that guy is a master craftsman. He is an amazing genius. I don't know what else to say about him, but and one of the world's nicest guys. He's absolutely incredible. We had a fabulous time visiting with him afterwards.
Just another thought from the opposite point of view. I guess they could actually project an image of the International Space Station also on the firmament if there was the firmament.
Great.
Just another thought.
Yeah, and that's entirely possible, because you have to wonder about that, because obviously what we're seeing up there is not an object that is traveling at 5 miles per second, and that's part of my presentation. I'm actually going to highlight a piece of that presentation for everybody here in just a few minutes. Because I got an amazing response on the ISS part of my presentation, which was basically, stuff I've covered on Globebusters before, the angular size. I went much deeper into the apparent brightness and stuff. And for example, let's see, here it is right here. So if you take a 0.1 lumen, and this is amazing how this works out. 0.1 lumen here on Earth, and you do the inverse square law and you take it back up to the moon to 1 meter above the surface, the math works out to be 14.7 quadrillion lumens of light. And that, needless to say, just blew people away. And that's using these functions right here. This is the formula, all this stuff. But and then I kind of showed my portable sun flashlight to everybody and said, this is what 6,500 lumens looks like, and I shine the light out on everybody. But I guess what I want to I'll go ahead and do this right now before Eero does his thing. But so I was talking about the ISS, and this really blew people away. So I started out by giving these facts that it travels around the Earth at 17.5, about 5 miles per second. And I said it's roughly equivalent to the size of a football field or a 747. Blah, blah, blah. It has an angular velocity of about 50 arc seconds, which is less than our maximum visual acuity and all that stuff. And then I started talking about, you can go to Spot the Station, and Spot the Station will tell you when it comes to your city and when it flies over. And a lot of people have seen this, and that's one of the biggest arguments that we get from people. They say, well, I've seen the ISS fly over. What's wrong with you retarded flat earthers? And all I'm saying is, you really need to think about what it is you think you're seeing, right? And so I went through the specifications here, and I said, okay, so the typical transit times are anywhere from 2 minutes all the way to 8 minutes. And at 5 miles per second velocity, that translates from anywhere from 600 to 2,400 miles distance. Add to that the 250-mile altitude from the ground, and you have a total viewing area that covers over 2,600 miles, or the entire width of the United States. Well, first of all, if you think that you can see any object, no matter how brilliantly it's lit, from 2,600 miles away or all the way across the country, you have rocks in your head. All right, but the NASA fanboys are still going to insist that it's possible. So I took it further. It's like, okay, so what is the explanation? Why is this thing so bright? And NASA tells us that, well, first of all, the ISS, the best time for visibility is just shortly after sunset or shortly before sunrise. And this, theoretically, in the globe model, is when the sun is below the horizon and it's reflecting up at the ISS so that it gets a proper angle to reflect down to your eye. Well, first of all, that's preposterous, because when you think about that, that distance, the ISS at 250 miles above the Earth, is only 0.3% above the entire diameter of the Earth, right? The sun would never be able to get the proper angle to reflect virtually straight down into your eye, right? And so what I did then is I played this, and I'll go ahead and play this in the background. And this was just somebody's footage I took off of YouTube. And what it does is it shows the ISS. Here's the ISS, and it's floating over. And oops, I don't want to play that. Okay, so it had some crappy, Rocket Man tune in the background. So they're recording it flying over Ludlow, Massachusetts, and it's allegedly doing 5 miles per second, right? And notice, guys, the whole time that this thing is continuously shining light down into your eye, right? And this is supposed to be a reflected source. that is coming from the sun, which, and this is like straight down. If it's straight overhead, in order for something to be reflecting light directly back down at you, it has to be the light source has to be almost directly underneath you. Well, obviously the light source would be coming from a large tangent away from the ISS. And so the angle of light that it's shining down on you is impossible in the first place, right? So we're watching it, and this goes on for 3 or 4 minutes, and I asked everybody. I said, "All right, is this valid? Does everybody agree that this is what you see when you see the ISS flying over, and this is this brilliantly bright light?" Everybody said yes. I mean, because this isn't my recording. This is just straight off of YouTube, but this is accurate as to what you see. So then I said, "Okay, so it's time to start thinking about this again." And I said, "Has anybody ever played with a mirror in the audience?" And of course, everybody's played with a mirror, trying to flash, somebody away across a park, whatever. But I said, imagine what it would be like trying to flash somebody from a, target of 250 miles away. How impossible would that be? And to accentuate that, I played this video, which I also found on YouTube. We're claiming fair use on this. And so what this is an artist project that they took 400 people, and they're at least 100 yards, length, if not longer. And they're all playing with mirrors of all different sizes, big, huge, small, whatever. And they're trying to reflect the light into the helicopter or drone or whatever that is flying by, right? Look at all those people. Well, as you can see, you're only seeing the light being reflected very occasionally when the sunlight is just perfectly matched, right? And this is only less than a mile away, right? Maybe a mile at the most, but I'd say probably a half mile would be more realistic, or even a quarter mile. And so it's very, very difficult to catch these light glints, right? Well, so you have to then take that and apply that critical thinking to the ISS. And if it's only 3% above that 8,000 mile diameter, how is the sun able to reach the bottom of the ISS with the angle required to reflect the light down to your eye? How does the ISS manage to keep that reflected light coming perfectly into your eye while traveling at 5 miles per second for a distance of up to 2,600 miles? At the same time you are watching the ISS, how does the ISS also keep its reflected light coming into the eye of an observer continuously across your city or state, right? Because when they do this, they say, well, you can see it from anywhere in Denver, at these times, whatever. And of course, what I want other people to consider as well is if I can see from Denver, if I can observe it for 6 to 8 minutes, which essentially is the entire length of the country, then why can't everybody else also see it during those times, right? And why is it that broken down into certain areas? Well, obviously the answer to that is that it's not an object that is up in space, or, reflecting light down. It's impossible. It's straight up impossible. And this really, really hit people hard, especially when they started thinking about the reflective light thing part. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. What do you guys think about that, right?
Very good point. I would also add that the ISS never looks like it's rolling either over those thousands of miles that you're supposedly watching it. You would see some sort of pitching and rolling with respect to it going over a curvature if that was the case.
Just like clouds don't do it, this doesn't do it as well.
Yeah. So, and all those things. And like I said, if I can see it for 2,600 miles, then everybody else should be able to too. But the biggest thing is really, so it's somehow, the biggest reflective surfaces on the ISS are indeed the solar collectors, right? They're huge, but solar collectors are designed to collect light, not reflect it, right? So that's another huge problem for it as well. So,
right.
I just paused.
The thing has to be fitted with mirrors. That's their story. That's reflecting sunlight somehow, but it's reflecting off actual solar panels.
Yeah, it would have to be spherical to even. Yeah, it would have to be spherical to even remotely have a chance at that, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just crazy. And like I say, when you watch it, if you've ever witnessed one of these, it's just this bright light that's slowly lumbering across the sky, for 6 to 8 minutes. It never changes angular size. It never changes brightness. And the idea that anybody would believe for 1 second, once you think about what is actually happening, I mean, this is an ISS killer, guys, and I would recommend that everybody, go out and flat smack using that little simple thought experiment, or even put together some video like I did and show it to people. I mean, this will annihilate the idea of the ISS instantly. So, all right, cool. So, Iru, we are going to let you screen share, and I will kind of highlight what Iru is going to do, and go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready, Iru. But Iru did a presentation during the Globebusters show where he was showing the Go Fast rocket that went up, and the thing that he was highlighting on it was the temperature, and we were watching the thing go up to, 100 kilometers, or maybe 65, 70 kilometers, something like that, or miles, excuse me. And the temperature drops down to nearly 0 Kelvin, right? Absolute zero. It's really, really close to it. And then he starts showing some behavior of some liquids at that. And by the way, Era, are you still with us? Or did he step away? Because I noticed that he's not presenting yet. Maybe he stepped away for a second.
Sorry, guys, you're talking about me?
No, I was talking about Iru. Oh, Iru.
Right. I saw it stepped away because I did step away for a second. I thought Iru would be speaking.
Okay. Well, I guess Iru.
We'll come back.
All right. Well, when Iru comes back, we'll do this. In the meantime, I guess I'll show a couple other things then.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. There you are, Iru. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. A family situation. Nothing for worry. Just regular stuff on Sunday. But I just in precisely instant, I just sit on the chair, so I didn't know exactly what you're talking about. But
they're calling you to present.
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, I was just kind of giving an intro to what you presented at the conference, talking about how we were watching the Go Fast rocket. You were showing that initially, and the thing we were paying attention to there is that when it went up and it got to altitude, it was nearly at absolute zero, very, very close to that. And then from there, you went to demonstrate some liquids, and that's kind of where I got. So if you want to pick it up from there or start, that would be cool.
Let me just open because I don't have exactly the same PowerPoint that I presented in.
Okay. Well, if you need a minute, Ira, to put that together, I can show one other thing while you're putting it together. If you want to wait for just a minute. Okay. Cool.
Great.
All right. So let me go, and I want to highlight, and Ben, you can talk about this because, again, Ben actually put this out. I think you probably got this from the same source that I did, but I don't know where you got the picture of this, Ben. So tell us a little bit about this before I play this video.
Are we talking about the? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that one we got. I was notified about that with. I got the background information from Zetetic Truth Tube. He apparently these the Romanian. I'm sorry, not Romanian.
Polish
flat earthers were able to confront him, and he basically said that the Earth was flat, and then he did so also in this interview. So, I mean, it's not just the interview where he says the Earth is flat. He also said it to these the Polish flat earthers, and appeared there in that photograph. So, you know, the biggest reply that we're getting is, "Oh yeah, no, he was just joking about it." He obviously he's not joking, and the fact that he even appeared in front of the flat Earth.
Right. Well, first of all,
is proof.
Tell everybody who he is. Tell them who he is.
I wish I could give you his name right now, but he was the only Polish astronaut ever that flew with the Soviet Union. He was a cosmonaut, but he supposedly went to space. And I you know, what is his name?
General Hermaszewski.
Yeah,
Hermaszewski or something. Shevsky.
Yeah, something like that. Pardon our butchering of his name.
It's just an amazing statement from an astronaut. It really does appear like he just kind of tired of the lie and just came out and decided to be truthful about it. I wouldn't be surprised if they got to him after this and forced him to, he's going to probably have to come back and change his story and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was just kidding," that kind of thing. But he said it clearly in the circumstance that the Earth is flat.
Yeah, and even if you can't understand Polish, you can tell by the influx of his voice that he's quite serious. So I'm going to play it this time with the audio and let everybody hear this for themselves and see what they think. Here we go. This is just showing him posing with the flat Earth map. And then here comes the audio.
Pan tam był. Czy Ziemia rzeczywiście jest kulą zawieszoną w kosmosie?
Jest płaska. Tak jak oczekują i nie spodziewałem się co prawda tego pytania, ale zapewniam pana, że jest płaska.
Generał Mirosław Hermaszewski, jak dotąd pierwszy i ostatni Polak, który odbył lot orbitalny. Dziękuję serdecznie za rozmowę.
Dziękuję, kłaniam się. Jest płaska. Tak jak oczekują i nie spodziewałem się co prawda tego pytania, ale zapewniam pana, że jest płaska.
Okay. I don't think he was kidding at all.
Yeah.
But, we'll have to see if they get to him like they have so many other people, maybe threatening his family or whatever. But that's just something that was pretty crazy. And then one other thing that I want to show.
Let me add one little quick thing on that as well.
Sure.
On Wikipedia, they've already starting to try to. I saw that someone's trying to edit it already. Put out the conspiracy theory on his webpage, on his Wikipedia page, saying that there's just a conspiracy theory that he said the Earth was flat. So they're already trying to edit Wikipedia over this. I think it's pretty hilarious.
So it must be so it is the real guy, and they're fighting over it already.
Oh, it's absolutely the real guy, and the translation is perfect. It's been confirmed multiple times by various Polish speakers. So that is genuine footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, and then
if I just kind of extend a little bit, let me make my screen share as usual.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me flip over to you.
Okay.
All right, sir. You are presenting.
Okay, but no, just a few things. First of all, he was, this is in Spanish, but I mean, if you trying to find him, of course you're going to find he's a really cosmonaut, not an astronaut, because he worked with the Russians guy, and he has even his own stamp, like a national thing, because he was one of the first guys that supposedly was up there, like I believe was 40 days in orbit. So something that caught my attention is that after that he claimed that the Earth is flat, well, now I want to know what's going on. I mean, supposedly you are a national hero at that time because you was on 40 days in orbit. So what happened those 40 days? You have some kind of technology to be like, suspend up there, levitate over the flat plane, or it was just all, a trick and you go holidays in Iceland, in Hawaii? Because if this guy assumed that the Earth is flat, he as a cosmonaut, well, he needs to explain what is your what is
actually
his, doing,
right?
Exactly,
right?
Because it's not just the Earth is flat, and of course in our days the Polish agency he is in communion with NASA. This is the actual Polish administrator, the Polish the administrator of the Polish space agency. And
franchise.
Something that something that also caught my attention is that, well, this is the guy in these early days with another partner, and this is the official logo. Let me go back. This is the official logo of right now the Polish agency, the space agency. So that kind of triangle thing where I see before,
everywhere.
Exactly. And I made my last video in Spanish, in my Spanish channel, was talking about this and combining with the senior of the CIA, talking about that the NASA is not a space agency. And when you
Right.
start
Yeah,
to
that
put all
one's
this
great. I saw that one.
exactly when you start to put all this together, I want more explanations. In fact, for someone that supposedly came from the space agency background, well, tell me, what is your work about it? If the Earth is flat.
When you remember those balloons that you showed, the ones that can spend months up in the air, how far back does that technology go? Because they could be manned, have
but
crews in them, but
they are not going to be 40 days hanging on balloon, eating plastic for trick the people. They send to an a hotel and done.
Yeah. Just with the parabolic flights, maybe for but at that time is still animation period or no? Because that stop motion animation that was early on, right? That's 50s or late 50s.
Yes, but there is no. I trying to find at least find some video that confirm that supposedly orbit thing, but no. The only video that I can found is in the official Polish Space Agency, that when this guy is on just taking a spacesuit and put it together, but you don't have any kind of video when this guy go to the rocket, and you don't have nothing up there. You just have the guy that dressed in a spacesuit and nothing more. It's the only video footage that I can find. But something that to take into consideration is how everything is tied to NASA all the time. The other space agency all works with NASA. NASA is the ultimate authority to confirm everything from the Big Bang, because the satellite that confirmed the Big Bang is from NASA. The only space agency that put a man on another celestial body is NASA. Everything is NASA. And when you go to the CIA, for example, they call NASA because it's not a space agency. So I mean, what a joke, right?
Which is a perfect segue into this next section. I'm going to cover this really quick before we do that. Okay, and then let me actually kick over. Let me reshare with you guys if I'm not already. Let's see. Nope, I'm not.
Later, either should address that video from the Russians claiming that NASA did not go to the moon, which was very odd because they were claiming that the Russians are actually orbiting something. Remember the one that you shared?
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other sort of odd take on it, right? They tried to say that the Russians were actually going, that the Americans are lying, and by debunking the moon landing. So
interesting.
That was interesting.
Okay. So all right.
There.
So segueing into not a space agency, I have two clips that I'm going to show. One of them, of course, is the abbreviated version that David Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole put together, and I'm going to play that first, and then. Many people have said, well, you probably just took that completely out of context. Well, I just so happen to have the entire presentation here, and I'm going to play a little bit more of it on that to put it in context. And believe me, when you do that, it's even worse than you would imagine, right? So this guy, David Steele, is one of the justices at the inquiry into human trafficking, ITNJ Judicial Commission, at this big summit that they had, International Tribunal of Natural Justice. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and play this from David Weiss, and we'll get the abbreviated version. Here we go.
When Alan Dulles brought in all the Nazi scientists and so forth, they went to two places. They went to CIA and they went to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, which in our world we call it not a space agency, which in our world we call it not a space agency. And as Kathy O'Brien has said so clearly, that's where the bulk of the mind control is.
Okay, so this guy is the ITNJ Chief Counsel, Robert David Steele. So, I mean, he's not just some schmuck, right? He's been in intelligence, CIA, FBI intelligence. He's been through the gamut and everything. And so, the first thing I saw from people is like, oh, yeah, you just took that out of context. That couldn't have possibly been what he meant. But like I said, we're going to show this in context and I'm going to play about a 2-minute segment out of this to kind of give you an idea what is actually going on in this conference.
How can you take out of content that explicit words?
Well, that's all I'm doing is I'm trying to appease the ballers, even though they don't give a crap anyway. But I'm going to show this anyway because we are going to hear a rebuttal on it. So
I think it's much worse because it is on human trafficking, and I know of Kathy O'Brien. So I mean, the context is it's like going deep into the training that they do, and we know that the astronauts in Chris Hadfield's book, he talks about the rectal probes and everything, and the questioning they go through. That is just code or for what's going on here. So
yeah, you watch this entire presentation, and I will put it in the show notes, everybody. It is it'll freeze your soul. It's really bad. So let's put this in context. Here we go.
Rather than have three questions, this is a collective question, and it's directed not so much to you, Christy, but to Chief Counsel here in relation to the role of the Central Intelligence Agency. We understand the abuse, the sex, the drugs and everything else, and we're wondering if Chief Counsel could comment on the advantage of the CIA being involved in these programs, and and the dangers of disclosure, like when people do come out of drug-induced and sex-induced disturbance. I was just saying to His Grace before that. And to my associate Justice, that a friend of mine became addicted to cocaine, and he basically lost his mind. He used to go to parties manned by leading lights in the establishment, including judges, and they were served drinks and cocaine by naked girls, and that was normal. But he came out of it, and he recovered, and he wrote a book, and the book is a bestseller, and it's on the Amazon bestsellers list. So some of the people who were involved ended up in prison. He didn't, and some judicial reputations went down in tatters. So I was wondering if Chief Counsel could...
Sir John, I love being sandbagged and hit over the head with a 2x4. No problem.
But you were trained for it. You're a Marine officer.
It is the obvious question. Let me say that you'll have a chance to submit additional information for the record, including names if you wish, and we can coordinate something for follow-on videos.
Yes.
The obvious question is, okay, you've been a senior CIA officer, and do you believe this? Yes, I believe this. However, let me clarify that 90% of the people in CIA are good people trapped in a bad system, and there are at least 7 CIAs, okay? So CIA is not a monolithic organization. Also, when we, against the orders of President Truman, when Allen Dulles brought in all the Nazi scientists and so forth, they went to 2 places. They went to CIA and they went to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, which in our world we call it not a space agency. And as Kathy O'Brien has said so clearly, that's where the bulk of the mind control has been done. So just to mention the 7 CIAs as a partial and very brief answer to your question, there is the Wall Street CIA. CIA was actually founded by Wall Street to be its secret control element. And this is best told in a book by David Talbot, The Devil's Chessboard. Okay, and I have a summary review on it. Then there's the White House CIA, which does dirty tricks for whoever happens to be president. But the White House CIA seems to have merged into the blackmail CIA. CIA at the worst level appears to have joined now with the FBI, the NSA, and the Mossad. And so there's this aspect. And then there's the drone CIA, which has a 98% assassination rate. There's the Saudi-Israeli CIA, which does rendition and torture. And then there's the real sort of CIA, the old spies like me who do their best not realizing that it's all a joke. And then finally there's the bureaucratic CIA. I mean, I was threatened with assassination in a specific country, and 2 days later the message comes in. I went underground in pseudonym in another hotel, abandoned my house, and a message comes in from a clerk at CIA saying, well, we're paying for your house, we can't pay for a hotel at the same time. And my chief of station sent back a one-line
Okay. All right. So, needless to say, those who would object to this being out of context, when you actually review what this is in context to, it makes it much, much worse. And I love the way he said, people like me, in the CIA that didn't realize that this was all a joke, right? Meaning, well, I think it's pretty obvious what he means by that. That a lot of the things that are put forward, or almost everything that is put forward, is a joke. It's a lie. Just like that one CIA director that said something, and I'm paraphrasing this, but as soon as the American public believes everything, that we're saying, our disinformation campaign will be complete. That was no joke either. That is truly the way that it is. And this is how they operate. And he knows full well that not a space agency is not shooting people to the moon or into space. He knows all this. It becomes very apparent.
This is the week of admissions.
Yeah, it's a matter of fact kind of statement, as we know, as we all call it there, inside. So that's quite bad.
And you can see the impact of Flat Earth is having is that these people are feeling more brave to come out and say these things. I think they're getting it from the work that we're doing, is that they're seeing it and they're starting to feel it strongly in their own heart, and they're coming out and saying the truth. That's what's amazing. And I that's why we got to keep at this, because more and more people are going to come out and tell the truth.
Yeah, there's some sort of transformation going on where, slowly we're going to apparently get there, and they're going to have to adapt. Their masks are falling, and, they have to think of a plan B or something. They're going to have to embrace, and admit what's going on at some point, because the cat's out of the bag, as we know it.
Yeah, but the plan B supposedly was to go to other planets to don't be killed, and they can do it that. They cannot do it that. So because I'm joking, okay? But
it's like, what are you saying, Eru?
No, of course, because I saying a lot of time when in my radio show that when the people came together, they don't know they don't going to have anywhere to hide, because the Earth is flat, and maybe I don't know if they have something beyond the Antarctic continent, but if not, they don't go. They can't go to other planet. They can hide in any other place. So, the plan B? I don't think they have a plan B. I don't know. Maybe they have a really big red button which said reset the playing field, But if not, I don't know which is going to be the plan B.
Yeah, we see that they're desperate, making up new stories to make up for their mistakes, and all the time. Right? You see these astronaut stories. They're clot in the brain, their blood clots, and all sorts of other cosmological inversions. That Bob was talking about, the ether. It had been debunked, now it's brought back. They coming back and forth. They go, they're all over the place.
But here in Argentina, the same thing happened with an astrophysicist that was interviewed on public television, and the guy, start to explain that, well, there must be something in outer space to communicate with the electrical magnetic fields and waves and blah, blah, blah. So the journalist asked him, okay, it's like the ether. And the astrophysicist said, yes, it's like the return of the ether, but it's not the old ether. It's a new one. It's the Higgs boson, things like that. So they changed the name.
Bob was saying that also his friend had a explanation for some of this as well, that it became dark matter and dark energy and all these other things that they plug into the thing, and they call different names. So they hide it under different guises.
Yeah,
the ether.
Yeah, but absolutely. It's the same thing. It's ether. It's something there that you need to have to operate, in this world. But of course, they're trying to mess up and saying that it's not this, like a stationary ether, or it's not inside of our world. It's just like outside, feeling all the vastness of the space, heliocentric space, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So anyway, as far as that article that you were talking about, this it's this particular article. We'll get to that here in a minute after Iru does his presentation. But I will say that they also did a report. I don't know, it was over a year ago, and I couldn't contain my laughter because the report comes out and they're just talking all nonchalantly, and they say, and when Scott Kelly came back, they realized that the astronauts' DNA was 7% different from each other. And I couldn't stop laughing because if anybody knows anything about DNA, we're close. 7% is huge. We are more closely related to a goldfish than a 7% deviation in DNA, right? And it's like, what did that make Mark Kelly or Scott Kelly? What did that turn him into? It's absolutely unbelievable the crap that they spew out, and everybody just buys it hook, line, and sinker. But yeah, this was another one that was ridiculous. So, Iru, if you want to, are you ready to go with this then?
Yeah. Let me just open the.
Yeah, I thought it was almost like they were trying to say that he turned into a mutant. He's going to be a superhuman. If they could say
it could be that, man. Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. So yeah, and then as far as the ether, this report by Thunderbolts Project, who I'll play a little bit later, a piece of this, but essentially they are fully recognizing that the ether does exist. It has to exist. EM waves cannot propagate through nothing. More and more scientists are getting on board with this, whether they're calling it the Higgs field or many other names that they're calling it, the quantum field, whatever. It does exist. It is there. And of course, like I said before, this is exactly what the fiber optic gyro is measuring when they're talking about stuff like that. So, and here we have an article from New Scientist that, Einstein killed the ether. Now the idea is back to save relativity. So now all of a sudden, then when they realize that they need it for relativity, which is already dead and buried, they're trying to validate it by saying, oh yeah, okay, the ether does exist. Einstein was just wrong. We just looked at it wrong, right? Crazy stuff. So, Iru, go ahead and share your screen, and I'll kick over to you when you are ready.
Okay, give me one more minute, please.
Okay.
I'm trying to. No, because I want to show just a picture, but okay. Let me.
Well, when you're ready, go ahead and bring it up, and I'll just keep talking until you are.
I'm no.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're ready.
Yes, supposedly. No, because it was something funny, and I have here in my Spanish video because I don't recall exactly where I found it, but it was like a really unexpected picture when Einstein started to present this Polish astronaut that the space agency directly from the Polish this one. Look at how this is an official. It isn't a Polish space agency website, and what is something really funny is that they use this art to present his his
wow. A space shuttle over the dome. That's unbelievable.
Over the dome, exactly, man.
Looks like a hat you can put in your head.
Yeah. So it was really funny because, why are you going to do that? I mean, it's just like a dome, with
that's the new yarmulke. That's the new yarmulke for the Israeli Space Agency.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just I mean, because I was researching, because I trying to say, okay, if this Polish guy is an official, is an authentic, cosmonaut, and what is about, because I never heard about the space agency from Polish, for Poland. So I started, go a little deep, and I really, honestly, I found a really nice things to analyze. Of course, this is not the show proper to do that, but I encourage everyone out there that maybe if you are a little curious, you can find a lot of things, because after all, and let me just with this I close the topic, but remember that all the space that we have in modern times, it came from this guy that it was really well, you can really find it in this Houston We Have a Problem documentary, but it's called from this guy that came from Yugoslavia, near Yugoslavia. This let me just sorry for the mess.
No problem.
Let me just, because I don't want to, if I bring a topic, I don't like to Herman, it was this guy that it's a really bad name to pronounce, but it came from the Bernard von Braun and all these Arthur C. Clarke, that they took this guy ideas, even the modern hotel that supposedly they are going to okay, I'm not going to let me just 1 second, because if not I'm gonna be like an idiot trying to talk in English. And this is a guy, let me go, where is it, man? Sorry.
That's okay. Take your time. No hurry.
Then
I don't think anybody's going anywhere.
Here. I have it. Because this is official. This guy, Herman Pototnik Nordung. This guy,
okay.
Yeah, this guy. And let me just bring to Google and let Google do the rest. But this guy is the official guy that present. For example, the last news that we're gonna have a hotel in outer space. Well, this is a hotel. I mean, it came from this guy. This is the hotel idea, even with the same kind of capsules.
2001 Space Odyssey thing.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. In there, they have it right there.
Yeah. Look, the space hotel. Well. Yeah, but if you go to the space hotel in orbit, let me just type that, orbit. If you go to this article and read it, this supposedly super space hotel it's like an idea of Bernard von Braun, and that is in every article out there. Is trying to refer to Bernard von Braun ideas, even with the pods that they're gonna use, like the room of the hotel itself, and blah blah blah.
That's plagiarized from the Polish guy.
Yeah, but that idea came from this guy, and this guy wrote a book called "The Problem of Space Travel and the Rocket Motor," because this was presented after the First World War. And even Arthur C. Clarke read his novels. So when you start to putting all this together, immediately you're gonna find that all the modern space agencies use this guy's idea, because this was the first guy that trying to solve the problem that how we are going to reach the start if there are million and million of miles away and we don't have the propulsion to do that. So he started to draw and present idea of how the rocket must be to achieve that adventure. So he started drawing all these rocket concept, this wheel in outer space to trying to create artificial gravity. All that came from that guy.
So it's from the 1920s. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
late
exactly.
20s. Right.
Late 20s, exactly.
Before.
Exactly. And so, and then this guy is from the, I believe is not from Yugoslavia. It's not from, it's from Slovenia.
Slovenia, okay.
But Polish, Slovenia, Yugoslavia, all these, German, it's all tied together. But that's my opinion. I'm not going to go deep in this topic. But when you start looking into it, it's a really interesting thing to take into account. All this space that came from Europe and not from United States. And well, after all, this guy used this dome to trying to
they took it and put it on Hollywood and many other ways, make it really popular, promoted it.
Yeah, and
pretended it was theirs.
Yes, exactly. And also we are going to see along the presentation, but when you're talking about this gas, this is presented as a dome structure. It's an octahedral molecular geometry that when you put together, you have like a dome. So of course, I am not saying, and nobody, at least that I met in Globebuster, is going to say this is the ultimate truth. Especially when you're trying to explain something that is out there where you don't have direct contact, you cannot going to measure or to touch this, special situation that supposedly is up there. But at least for me,
one question is: does this get hard in any way, or because we maybe it is that fluid that the Go Fast goes into, but does it? Can they make it turn hard?
Yes. Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Iru, but I believe that during the presentation, they were talking about, I think it was this gas, and they said that when it gets near the absolute zero, then it starts to become crystalline.
Solidify.
Exactly. Yeah, solidify. Exactly.
And that's when we have absolute zero up there.
Yeah, but it's not just with this gas. The same thing happened with the CO2, for example. I present this gas as something special because it has 6 times more density in the air. The CO2, for example, has only 1.4 more dense than the air. So just 1.4 it's too tiny, the difference. But this gas is 6 times more dense than the air.
That's an interesting comparison, because isn't the air a bunch of different gases? Then how does that work? If the air is a bunch of gases, is it right to compare one gas to air in terms of density, or should it be compared to air as conjunction gases? Sorry. Yeah,
right. The way that works out, obviously, when you're going up higher and higher and higher, you're also starting to get the separation of gases. You get the noble gases at one level, and you keep going up, and then you get into helium, hydrogen. A lot of people say that hydrogen-4 is something that would be a good candidate for this as well. So when you get up that high, the gases, that make up our atmosphere down here at sea level or at 5280, where I'm at in Denver, anything like that, it's a whole different animal when you get up to those altitudes. So continue on, Iru.
Okay. No. I just looking in the other monitor a few things that I have because this is just like a short presentation. I don't have all the things that I really like to share, but let me try to put all together, because it's going to be a really
I think showing the
forward and backwards.
Right. Can you show the rocket and the temperature that it's registering?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to start with that. Okay. So something that I came obsessed a few years ago is trying to find the curvature. Maybe, as you know, and maybe you have the same obsession, And, of course, everybody knows that you are not going to find in the ocean shore, because the boat is not disappear beyond the curve. So you're going a little more high and a little more high. You reach the commercial altitude, you're not going to find there. Then you go to military plane, you're not going to find there. Then you go into balloons, and you're not going to find there. And supposedly you must be found there, but you are not going to. And then I start to study space agencies, but not with the massive rocket, because that is only a Hollywood, show. So I go into the real thing, how you get there for real. And the only way that supposedly it's possible to do is with sounding rockets. And all the space agency and all private companies use only sounding rocket. They don't use big rockets. And you have for free, because the German Space Agency, the Sweden Space Agency, and other private companies, really, low cost private companies, they put on YouTube their official sounding rockets. Videos, sorry. But something that caught my attention is that the guys from the Go Fast rocket, after creating the Go Fast rocket, they officially create like a company called Up Aerospace. And that company is supported by NASA after the achievement of the Go Fast rocket. In the Go Fast rocket, you can find a few things that are really interesting. Some special is that the moon and the sun is visible on the horizon at the same time, and supposedly if you go to that date, that is not that supposedly what's going on. Supposedly
kind of like
the
that moon over Australia type of thing.
Exactly, and that is something that a few YouTube channels presented, and that is a really nice thing. But at that time, everyone started talking about that the Go Fast hitting the dome, and you have a lot of videos talking about hitting the dome. And when you start looking, it's not hitting something, and in fact, is the system that the rocket has to try to stabilize and stop the spinning of the rocket called yo-yo the spin. So looking to that, I came across with this new company from the same guys that in 2015 they launched this sounding rocket. This is like an arrow, it's like the symbology behind trying to penetrate the dome with the arc and the arrow. You can find that symbology all over the place in Hollywood movies, in history books, even here from Latin American culture. You know what I'm talking about, right, guys? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the breaking of the dome, Simpsons, and I mean even the Mahabharata. These arrows are very important.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they use this like a tiny rock, a tiny arrow, and this is official video. It's not like something that I made or someone else made. This is official from them, and this is all the data that they put. The mission is deploy Maria. And the names are are really telling the story itself. Maria capsule into space, test the aerodynamics and stability of the payload on re-entry speed up Mach 2.
Just pointing out that Maria, it's Maria is the seas, right? So it's pointing towards water.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so weird, because what I was thinking, guys, is I don't know if you guys are familiar with the movie Paint Your Wagon, but I was thinking of the song that one of the guys sings in there. They call the wind Mariah. So I was thinking it was the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever.
But if you listen Santos Bonacci, he explained very well how Maria referred to sea, to water.
It's a Latin root. Maria. It means waters.
Mar.
Mar
is
interesting. Mar for us is sea.
Exactly. The word mar in mar is equal to say sea.
Yeah, in Portuguese and Spanish and Italian and Latin.
Exactly. So that is the first thing that you must be take into consideration. So we're gonna send a sounding rocket to the sea, but that sea is 120 kilometers up. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that they launched this rocket -15. This is a company up in space, and they put this, and I don't know why they do it, because I didn't find any other video footage for any company. It doesn't matter, it was from German, for United States, for private company. This is the only video that I find that they put this data of the supposedly airspeed, altitude, and most important, the outside air temperature.
Yeah, 1 second in, and it's already over 2,000 miles an hour. Now that's a rocket launch, guys. NASA's just some sort of joke. That is a
real rocket launch. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And this is, like in comparison with the space shuttle or that nonsense rocket, this is just like, like a pencil in terms of the weight.
They are supposed to accelerate 2,000 miles an hour per minute to get to do what they say they're doing, to get to 17,500 miles an hour
they don't even get close. They don't even before they get to Miko, they're not even coming close. Go ahead, Ben.
Imagine if you're tied to this rocket. What would happen to your body if it shoots like this? If you're tied to it,
you'd be dead.
You'd probably just stick to the ground. I mean,
you'd be dead.
Melt.
Yeah. You couldn't. It'd kill you.
They are supposed to accelerate.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to continue. And this is really fast.
+5. +10. Burn out.
Good burn. Copy, good burn.
Look at the temperature, guys.
Look the temperature.
Temperature
and
is
here,
insane there.
And hear the sound, how the sound start to slow down and eventually disappear.
Yeah, and while you have it there, wait a second, just pause it. See this thing on the side of the rocket? It looks like there's little steel things that are poking out. What is going on with that? I've always tried to figure that out. Why is that doing
magnetic? It looks kind of like magnetic stuff sticking to it. What do you think?
Yes, it's something like that. It reminds me the ferrocell, the ferromagnetic fluids, But I cannot say if this is some kind of metallic sticker that start to, for the temperature of the rocket and the condition of the friction with the air at the beginning, start to rip apart. Exactly.
That's possible. Yeah.
That. Yeah. I don't know exactly what's going on. But finally, yeah. Because I don't know if it's moving like like being. If you look, the movement is something like it's moving like a sticker start to break and has this velocity transfer situation. And I'm going to continue.
Yep. Look at that temp go down.
Yes, they activate the spin mechanism.
Yo-yo D-spin.
Yeah, and they jump, of course. They go to but when they cut. Of course, they have the complete video. Why they don't put that? But the nice thing is when they cut and go to this part that supposedly is going to show us the re-entry. Look, the temperature.
Yeah, that's
the speed is almost zero. I mean, it's almost zero in comparison with the initial speed. The altitude is almost 120 kilometers up there. This is in feet. And then this is the outside, because you have the oil temperature, you have the ice zone, as they call here, and this is the outside temperature. So, I mean, and keep decreasing.
Do you have any estimate of how long they cut off?
No, I don't. But I assume if I compare with the German space agency that they send this sounding rocket, could be about 4 to 5 minutes, because they say that when you reach with this tiny rocket, when you reach the 120 kilometers, you're gonna have 6 minutes of microgravity. Supposedly, they call microgravity, right?
One thing to look might be, at the cut, the moment of the cut, the difference between the airspeed in the 2 meters before and after the cut, and the altitude, and the temperature, everything, of course. But that will give us, a sense of what has transpired. The change, at least from the airspeed, because it got slow and now it's accelerating again, and it's going down.
Yeah, it's not.
Yes,
it's not really even in a parabolic arc either, is it, Eero?
No.
That's the thing that's really puzzling. It's like, how can it be in microgravity when, first of all, the gravity at that particular elevation is not supposed to be all that different, maybe right around 9.3 meters per second squared up at that elevation. So how can it be experiencing microgravity if it's not in a parabolic arc? Right? What is it up there that is causing it to be in this so-called microgravity? And yet it's apparent that it floats. That's one of the things that Brian Mulling, latched
because it should
onto.
be accelerating and falling, right? That's the microgravity thing, is a state of falling and being at a very high speed. And obviously none of that's happening. It's in low speed and it's floating somehow in some kind of fluid.
And supposedly, up to 80 kilometers, we have the less temperature, and after the 80 kilometers, we're gonna enter into the thermosphere that supposedly gonna reach, 15,000
1500s, Celsius.
Yeah, 1500, exactly. So what is exactly that moment that the rocket gonna start to burn?
Right?
Or at least heat a little bit, not burn because it's not oxygen out there. But I mean, this temperature at 120 kilometers.
That's pretty close to absolute zero.
It's insane.
It's insane, exactly. So let me just keep playing this. Oh, I gonna leave altogether. Sorry, guys, because if I go in back, it's going to tilt the software.
Okay, no worries.
-15. 5. Plus 10. Burn out. Good burn. Copy, good burn.
That's where it sounds like it's hitting water. You can hear that really strange sound, like the astronauts when they're in the swimming pool.
Yes, exactly.
Sudden jump. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's very.
So there you have
sound.
the temperature, and this is in Spanish, but it says absolute zero.
So
it's
close.
Almost the same thing.
Yeah, 3 degrees.
And then, and sorry because this is not translated, but here I present just an official article talking about the superfluidity, and how this material, these gases, start behave really, really weird when you talk about the helium-4, helium-3, CO2, hexafluoride, all these components that are gases. Of course, that is the really trinity. The water is like the really trinity. You have gas, liquid, and solid in the same material, and that is something people didn't think about it. How strange is the water itself. It's like a superhero itself. I mean, it's a material that has these 3 properties, like and you drinking and you put ice on the martini and you think that that's just just common sense, and everybody can do that, and when you start looking from outside the system and you see, let's do and create some water from the scratch, you as a god, if you want to, what? I mean, it's a really amazing thing. The water itself is really amazing. So when you put this material in this different temperature, the key is the temperature.
Yeah.
Yes.
Temperature.
They start taking on like superconductive properties. And the interesting thing that I thought, and I don't know if you have that clip here, was when at those temperatures, water or that substance started passing right through solid objects.
Exactly,
which
and I have it.
Was bizarre. And yeah, show that, Eero, because this is trippy.
Yeah. So what we need to take into consideration from this first part of the presentation is that we have a rocket that confirmed at least that up there the temperature is almost 0 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolute
that
zero.
is exact absolute zero. Exactly. Sorry, absolute zero or near to absolute zero. The other thing that you need to put together is, well, what happened to gases at that temperature, and what happened at that temperature is going to enter into some strange behavior. One of those strange behavior is the superfluidity. Okay, so that is the first thing that you take into consideration for this first part presentation. Then, what is a superfluidity? Well, let's take a look.
There's one thing: if it doesn't have viscosity, should it be behaving the way it is there, where it seems to kind of float, or is this just? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, well, yeah. Let him play this, and
Okay.
I think we can go from there. Go ahead, Eero.
Okay, let me just go from the beginning.
Okay, here we go.
There were more surprises ahead. In the 1930s, another strange phenomenon was observed at even lower temperatures. This rapidly evaporating liquid helium cools until at 2 degrees above absolute zero, a dramatic transformation takes place.
Suddenly, you see that the bubbling stops and that the surface of the liquid helium is completely still. The temperature is actually being lowered even further now, but nothing particularly is happening. Well, this is really one of the great phenomenon in 20th century physics.
The liquid helium had turned into a superfluid, which displays some really odd properties.
Here I have a beaker with an unglazed ceramic bottom of ultrafine porosity.
Ordinarily, this container with tiny pores can hold liquid helium. But the moment the helium turns superfluid, it leaks through.
We call this kind of flow a superflow.
Superfluid helium can do things we might have believed impossible. It appears to defy gravity. A thin film can climb walls and escape its container.
Why he talks about gravity? That if we are talking about densities, I mean, why gravity? You know, that's
some sort of magnetic. Is it a magnetic thing that might be pulling it around? Sorry.
Right.
Could
So
be, you know, or less viscosity. Let me just finish. I'm gonna finish the video, so everything is okay.
This is because a superfluid has zero viscosity. It can even produce a frictionless fountain, one that never stops flowing. Superfluidity and superconductivity were baffling concepts for scientists. New radical theories were needed to explain them.
Okay, so from here we have like other two components that to explain our behavior that we observe up in the sky, and this is just my point of view, okay? But here we have zero viscosity, zero friction, zero index of refraction, and for having this condition, you must have absolute zero temperature. So we have this condition up there. Well, that rocket shows something that could be possible. We have gases up there. Yes, we have gases up there. And if we have gases at that temperature, that gases must be entered in these conditions. Okay, and so what happened to electromagnetic field when you enter in this absolute zero and these conditions? And that is the next video, but if you want to comment first of all on this part.
Well, I would say that the electromagnetic field would become stronger because that's what seems to happen, at least when they supercool things down here on Earth. However, up there, I'm not sure, and they're not getting anywhere near that. But the thing that I find interesting is that it is fluidic. It doesn't seem to have any friction. And when you observe what that rocket did and the sounds that it made, it sounded like it hit some sort of a liquid. And then it suspended it exhibited anti-gravity type behavior, like microgravity, as they were saying. And that's very interesting. And what I find even more interesting is that I think at some point here you were talking about when it continues getting colder, then these gases, these liquids turn into crystalline form, which of course would kind of go right along with the crystalline description in the Bible of the firmament, right? So,
because the gas, when you have gas, you have like a reverse behavior. It's first is a gas, so if you start to hot, that gas is going to evaporate and disappear, if you want to see it that way. But if you have a gas and start cooling down, the gas is going to turn into liquid. And after a liquid, of course, what happens when the liquid is cooling down? It became an ice.
Crystallizes.
Exactly. Crystallizes, exactly. So,
and we are seeing all of those behaviors as the temperature drops. And, to the point, if it continues on, then it turns into an absolute solid structure, which, of course, MIT, CSU has confirmed that there is something that appears to be absolute glass-like. A solid structure is how it is described, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is absolutely amazing how all of this stuff seems to be panning out right here in this one demonstration.
The question, Edu, like if these rockets then, these are entering these fluid state that we're seeing this happening, it's super fluidic, and then there is the magnetic field and so on. Then what about those Dominic missiles and those bombs? Because they're exploding, the rockets are exploding against something, we see it spreading. Do you think it's going beyond, it has to be going beyond this point that these sounding rockets are going?
Well, No, I don't believe we well if you because I don't want to lose the story of this presentation. So then we can take that when I presented the gas itself, if you don't
Okay.
mind, Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
okay, we have all these conditions. So quantum locking. Why I'm talking about quantum locking? Because all the planets or the luminaries that we look up there, they, you can say that they only present one phases, like the moon, for example. They are rotating in cycles, so they never change the cycle along the way, from the creation to our days. So for that conditions happen, you don't need to have friction up there, because if you have friction, eventually you're going to stop. So when the modern science start to talk about the quantum locking, they need to go really down in temperature, because it's not, you are not going to have this quantum locking. And let me just reset the PowerPoint because it's autosave, and because this document is a little heavier, it's going to be more quickly to reset the PowerPoint than wait to the autosave.
Yeah, even Newton observed that there was no friction, and that's how he came up with the idea of vacuum.
Well, yeah,
that's how he
okay.
tried to explain that the Earth has to be spinning against nothing, otherwise it would stop. Exactly what you said, but he didn't know about any of these things that we're talking about.
No,
now.
Of course we are better than Newton, man. Of course.
The phenomenon you saw here for a brief moment is called quantum levitation and quantum locking. And the object that was levitating here is called a superconductor. Superconductivity is a quantum state of the matter, and it occurs only below a certain critical temperature. So a superconductor is defined by two properties. The first is zero electrical resistance, and the second is the expulsion of magnetic field from the interior of the superconductor. Inside the superconductor, there are no collisions, so there is no energy dissipation. It's quite remarkable. Think about it.
Yeah, it is.
In classical physics, there is always some friction, some energy loss, but not here, because it is a quantum effect. But that's not all, because superconductors don't like magnetic field. The combination of both effects, the expulsion of magnetic field and zero electrical resistance, is exactly a superconductor.
Ooh, so I was wrong.
How this works. I have here a superconductor, and when I place it on top of a regular magnet, it just stays locked in midair. Now, this is not just levitation, it's not just repulsion. I can rearrange the fluxons, and it will be locked in this new configuration, like this, or move it slightly to the right or to the left. Now, of course, I can turn it upside down, and it will remain locked. For example, I can make a large circular rail here. It moves freely. And again, that's not all. I can adjust its position like this and rotate, and it freely moves in this new position. And I can even try a new thing. And hopefully, if I did it correctly, it stays suspended. You see, it's quantum locking, not levitation.
So I present this like we have a more, things to consider when we are analyzing this up, these luminaries and that kind of thing. First of all, a magnet could be oriented all the time to the same phase, like a moon, for example, does with us. If you have a center magnetic field that in our plane of existence, we have that kind of condition, perhaps, right? Like the Mont Meru, or this kind of setups. I'm just talking about this setup. Like when you have a magnetic center, and of course you're gonna have one direction spin. That's the property that you're gonna, achieve. If you have one center magnetic force that drive everything around it. So you know where I'm going with this, right? So we have superconductivity, that's the real superheroes, superconductivity, super locking, quantum locking, the superfluidity, the lower temperature.
That's one of the things that gets me. Why do they have to just try to explain this as quantum locking, quantum effect? He repeats that. It's like magic. The way he repeats is it's putting you on a spell. Why is he pushing this? It seems to be just electromagnetic stuff. It seems to be just basic chemistry that we were looking at before.
Yeah, and in fact, they talk about fluxons. Well, show me a particle of fluxon, please.
Fluxons.
I mean, fluxons, the gravitons, because they implied the word quantum, it's implied quantified. So you need to use this terminology to put particles in the minds of the people. So if you are talking about, quantum locking, well, where is the particle that take that into, functionally behavior? Well, it's a fluxon. Well, show me a fluxon. No, it's too small. Okay, it's a field, and it's exactly. We don't know what's going on at that sizes. If you want
it's
to,
some sort of, would you say, is a resonant field that's. It's almost like alive. It's almost like magnetism is almost alive. It's constantly. It has a kind of spin usually, and that's something you can observe.
So when you go up into the atmosphere and you study in the geological way, something remarkable is that it doesn't matter how much CO2 we are trying to fight, because, for example, the same amount of these gases, the sulfur hexafluoride, is going to equivalent 100,000 times more than the CO2. So trying to make that image in your mind.
What did you say? It does what more than CO2? It's heavier?
No, I'm going to say in Spanish and you translate. La misma cantidad de CO2 equivale 20,000 veces la de el hexafluoruro de azufre.
So 20,000 times the same quantity of CO2. It's the same. It's equivalent to 20,000 times the amount of this.
Yes, the global warming effect, it's 20,000 times more the hexafluoruro sulfur gas than the CO2.
Right.
And that is official
it locks
data.
Things in, probably because it creates the wall kind of thing, the dome.
Exactly. And that is official thing. This is take from official textbooks and articles and things like that. So, for example, anytime that a volcano make eruptions, it injects all this gas, which one of the most gas presence in the volcano eruptions, like you can read here, of course it's in Spanish, but you can find the same equivalent in English, is not the neon gas or the oxygen or the hydrogen. It's
sulfur hexafluoride.
Exactly.
Wow.
So if you go to the and I like to relate this with pillars of the creation and things like that. When you go a little more symbology, you have these pillars that, it's like they keep the dome or this situation up there, maintain it. Yes, exactly. But that is just a poetic way of presenting this, okay? But the thing is, we have that gas up there. It's not just 20,000 times more, heavier or more
denser.
Not denser, the global warming effect than the CO2. Right. And remember Bill Neal talking about that the CO2 create like a dome, and he said it on the on that TV show that he presented the CO2 warming effect as a dome and as a closed system.
Who did it? Bill Nye, say? Bill Nye?
Bill Nye, yeah.
Right.
Russian Beat present that video like a year ago. So we have this presence of that gas. So what is this gas has, like particular than the other gases up there? Well, first of all, it's going to be 5 times more dense than the air itself. It's going to be a thermal insulator, non-flammable, reduce the sound frequency. It's going to not produce refractive index, so it's like invisible. It's colorless and odorless, and also is going to kill every kind of electrical standard behavior. So let's go into see that in action. First of all, this, for example, is like this container is filled with this gas. And this guy is going to drop just a tiny tinfoil boat concept there. But that floating is real. And I present like an overlay animation that you can see what is going on up there. It's react, of course, like a fluid. But when you start looking into this kind of presentation, you can clearly see how reacts as a liquid. And this is standard pressure and standard temperature, okay? Because that is just here on Earth. But you can see how behave. Okay.
So essentially, the volcanoes are ejecting this way high up, nearly to the thermosphere, and at that point they start taking on superconductive type of properties, and everything changes when you get up to that altitude and that temperature.
Yes, that is the idea. So we have this density capability. Then you have the thermal insulator that, for example, this guy is going to took this tinfoil box filled with the gas, and he's going to drop over candles, and you can see how the gradient spread is, turn down the candles, and then
fell on him.
Yeah, and then with electricity, when this guy put the electricity inside the container with the gas, immediately it's going to turn off. But look at the red. Yeah, it kills it, but it's still on because the red light is
power,
still on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it just stops it. In other words, what it's acting like is it has a much higher dielectric constant than air does, and it's literally shutting down the spark gap in between the two conductors there. So it's very insulative, exactly. is what you're saying. It has very high insulative qualities.
Exactly. And in fact, here from this French documentary talking about the hexafluoride gas, for example, here you can see with fire, when it's put, it's immediately turned off. But the gas itself, the monoxide, or I don't know what is the gas that left this burn, is on the top, because the other gas is more dense, so it's down.
You cannot
come
into it.
Exactly. So you have a lot of document. You have a lot of documentary. Yeah. For example, here you have at 20 degrees, standard temperature, you're going to have as a gas. But when you start cooling down, it's going to be a liquid. And if you keep going down, it's going to convert into crystal or ice or more solid behavior. Okay. So this is a long documentary. You can clearly see here how the gas is start increasing and shoot down the electricity and jumps immediately to the next level of possibility. And after a certain point, you don't going to have any more electricity. That is why it used in the electrical industry as isolator. Okay, for all these properties itself. But we have in the atmosphere, we have a lot of this gas in our atmosphere. That is the crazy thing. So when you start going and trying to put all together, this is the sound effects, like change the frequency, and it's like the same behavior when you see this rocket changing the sound when it enter in this condition. We are going to hear right now. Look, the expansion of the fire, and
wow. That
sound,
it just goes to show you that NASA can't get through that crap either. I mean, there's a dead giveaway for you, folks. There is a dead giveaway for you. Just another NASA lie exposed. Awesome.
It's interesting too that on that video there, when it's stopping to the spin, it looks like the Earth itself is getting flatter and flatter as it goes up.
Yeah, and I know, and I don't correct its lens. This is a fisheye lens, and I didn't correct it. I leave as original it is. Okay, so that keep that in mind. But right now, supposedly this rocket reached the 120 kilometers. They go into this microgravity, so they cut that part of the video, and they only show us when it's going to re-entry. But something that is, interesting to take into consideration is that, first of all, we have liquid stick to the side of the rocket up there with the super thermosphere temperature. It's a little strange because, after all, we never see supposedly the spacewalk showing us experiment that the astronauts say, I'm going to release water right now in outer space to see what happened. Nobody showed us. And that will be the most, unvaluable experiment out there. What happened with liquid in the vacuum of space? Why they don't show that? Well,
great question. Great point.
So we have or fire trying to start fire up there, whatever. But we have this kind of not just liquid, it's like ice on the side of the rocket. And then we have this behavior like it's like floating. It's not in microgravity or some kind of levitated behavior.
It's like it's like a buoyant behavior. Like it's bobbing up and down. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing that's
the sudden change, right?
Yes, is how it's self-auto-oriented after passing through this state of the fluidity.
Yes.
Because right now the rocket is.
This is that Brian Mullen made the exact same observation, and so did I. That is astounding. How it does it. It reorients itself. Like something is literally manipulating it, like it's floating. Really?
Yes.
It's
yeah. So you have, and listen the sound. The sound start to receive again air. So that right now is just in the random position, and then it's going to self-oriented without any kind of. And look, the water that is coming from here. What is that water?
What is that?
And then I assume that this rocket have a heavy part in some, for example, in this part is going to have more equipment, for example, attached to this part of the rocket, and that is why it's auto-oriented.
Okay.
Because it's going to start to reset. Not reset. I'm sorry for my English right now, but you know what I mean. I mean, when you are underwater, you always trying to self-oriented based on densities that you have in your, equipment or whatever. So when you go up there, I don't know how it's behaved. That's self-oriented, but it's like the rocket is just lost his orientation. And when it enter in our standard conditions, everything reset and start working again and finds where is down, where is up, where is sides.
Finds it. Yeah, and it's gradual as well. As it goes towards that state.
Yes. And the sound itself, and then it's gradually, start to have friction and blah blah blah. This is another one. This is for the same company. It's called Space Sailors. They send this rocket, reach the same altitude, and behave the same way. And when it's re-entry to our standard atmosphere, it's going to reorient it. It's going to behave like they are jumping on liquid, or taking out. It's like a boat, going really fast on water, like a sport boat. Then hit the ground and stop. And this is for comparison purposes. This is a different rockets, and you can clearly see how they all behave the same way. They are like levitated and then enter to another state of fluidity, or whatever you want to call it, and self-oriented. They know where is down, where is up, automatically, without
Yeah, they take on buoyant properties and act like they're floating. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yes,
that's
I just
astounding.
Wanted to add, do you remember that Hennessy commercial where the balloon pops up through the liquid? Anyway, just to really does seem like that's exactly what they're describing.
And that's something that could happen. Is like this is the barrier, this is a gradient where this condition starts and the standard conditions end. And of course, you're going to have this microgravity, quote unquote. And then when the rocket enter in our standard atmosphere, is going to hit the other property, the other density, the other fluidity, and start spinning, because you're going to have friction. You are going to have again this loss of energy and all the behavior that there is not a quantum, quote unquote, state up there. Right. So for putting all together, we have all these properties up there to have floating luminaries or orbiting celestial bodies showing us the same phase all the time, without losing any kind of energy to lose their cycle. So we have all these properties to not getting out, first of all, with human technology. Because imagine something that I trying to say is, will be really amazing to create a rocket, like a go fast rocket, independent rocket, send it up there and put outside of the rocket a few instruments, like for example, like something that produce electricity, and see if the electricity up there could, be started, or put a fan. Instead,
well, I think we already know the answer to that, Iru, just by looking at the behavior of sprites, and how they discharge up and they literally flatten out when they hit that level.
Yes,
so
man,
I think there you go.
Yeah, and that is the next part of the presentation.
and this, I was wondering what does, because the superfluidic state has no friction, like we were talking about, but the rocket acts as if it's floating. Does it have anything to do with voltage at all? Well, this supposedly also insulates, but then what about electromagnetism? Is it also completely inexistent inside the superfluid? And why does
it's get more power,
stronger? Okay, so that explains the buoyancy that you see. What we may call, like, it acts as if it's buoyant, but because it's in a superfluid, then maybe its magnetism acts on it somehow. Something happens there.
Yeah, but take this into consideration. We are only like scout only 120 kilometers, but we don't know what happened more up maybe there is a gradient, and after a certain point, you change again conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And the things start behave completely different, So we don't know, because we cannot. That is why I say, why don't create a rocket with like a really big fan on the bottom, and we activate it and trying to behave more like a submarine thing, not trying to ignition fire to keep going up there. Because
A propeller, you mean, like in the back that turns?
Yeah, exactly.
I have to wonder what sulfur hexafluoride does, in the near superconductive state or superfluid state, excuse me, and even when it supposedly starts turning crystalline, what that does optically to things, and if it could cause something like that phenomenon we were seeing with the parabola, the parabolic dish and the apparent position of things.
Yeah, well, that will be. In fact, you can achieve Can you repeat so I learn how to pronounce that?
The parabola?
No, the hexafluoride.
Sulfur hexafluoride.
Okay, that thing.
Sulfur,
you can buy it.
Right, sulfur hexafluoride.
Yeah, sulfur
you'll get it.
hexafluoride. Yeah, you can buy it and experiment. I showed these guys on their own labs, playing with this gas. So it's not something that you are not going to, it's not plutonium, it's something like that. I mean, you can buy it. And, just for close the presentation, you talk about the sprites. And of course, I really think about it, because you have this massive discharge of electricity that it's just going down and not up, because it's something there that stops that electricity to go up. That is the first thing that I think about it. And then you have,
you can almost see a wave from the top of that fluid, almost as it fades away. If you know what I'm saying?
You see this gas behavior, like I show when the guy puts the paper with fire into this gas, and go, and you have the same behavior. You have this tiny gradient where, just produce this gas, but stop immediately because it's not keeping the penetration. Then you have this dome, this clary dome thing, in terms of polarity. Then we have all this electricity behavior in our sky. Then you have all the ancient symbology with the black sun, the moon, the sun, and the dragon, the serpent, represent the aurora borealis. That is why it's green color. The serpent, the dragon represent the green color. You're gonna have in a lot of culture that talks about the white dress, it's the moon, the yellow part is the sun, the black part is the black sun, and of course the wings, it's in color green because represent this snaky behavior of the aurora borealis, which is, for me at least, is the matrix information. That is why matrix use the green color of all the letters coming down. And then if you keep going in this symbology way of looking at, you have all this representation in the ancient cultures that represent, this kind of tool. Is more like representing the power of electricity and magnetism than just a simple tool.
Yeah, that's kind of like Zeus's thunderbolt, is what that looks
exactly.
like. Well, actually, that's what it says. Okay, I just read it.
Exactly. You're gonna find these pillars. These pillars in Egyptian culture or Greek culture. This digit column is like a synthesis of the phi letter that represent the magnetic field, closing together, representing like this closed system. So you're going to have these pillars also in the cosmology of the Egyptian, showing the dome.
Several planes almost coming out of that idea there, that they're just showing this pillar. Right? It's almost like that there's 4 levels over there as well.
Yeah, the Djed column and the pillars is something that Cami and Zach, Good Times for All, and my wife Cami, were kind of focused on in their presentation, and how they apply magnetically to this construct. So this is so cool. This is all kind of coming together
Yeah, even the
Also,
modern high voltage insulator has the same thing as the columns. In our modern times, we can see the same thing. We can see, of course, all these behavior.
Chips
The
like
the chips representation. We can see the Nikola Tesla electric oscillator. Be like
another
the same thing. I mean, it's all.
If you come back just a few slides, there's a similarity between the Egyptian cosmology and the tree of life in the center of the dome there, that figure there, and the slide before this one with the ancient glyphs on rocks, right? I think it's the one right before this one as well.
This one?
No, the slide before this one, that one. See those figures there, the kind of frog, these ancient, those things
all over the place.
Yeah.
Those are actually plasma patterns.
Yeah, the plasma pattern. Yeah, the plasma pattern is also maybe represented in the Egyptian cosmology at the center, with where the tree of life would be, where the North Pole and Mount Meru would be in that representation, because of the arms outstretched, just like that kind of froggy figure.
The real thing, when you're trying to put all this together, is that we have been deceived and reset our histories so many times that we found, because I always ask, show me the mathematical numbers or formula to build up the pyramids, because if you don't have the modern mathematical equations to build all these magnificent supposedly rockets and buildings,
it's by chance.
Exactly.
They're lucky. They're lucky.
They're lucky because I don't see even one equation of the pyramids of any
How are they doing
civilization. How they're doing it? Exactly.
They don't need to have Arabic numbers to have mathematics. That's one of the things.
Exactly. Well. So when you start to put all this together, it's really complex, because nobody here is an expert. But when you start to put all this together, the zero viscosity, zero friction, all based on zero temperature, and then the electromagnetic field, the quantum levitation, the rocket that show us that property up in the cold firmament, quote unquote. So that is why I trying to say we can have a dome in terms of the symbology. The word dome is mean house, is mean dominator, is mean few things. Depends in the culture you're gonna go. But the thing is, we have a physical properties to explain that if we have that temperature and that gases and keep getting cooler, we're gonna have a container based on physical properties, not just because after all, when I see out there all the magnificence of the nature that is created in a biological way, why this super intelligent is going to create some kind of glass metal structure that is not nature way, if you think. Nobody's you don't have glass.
In other words, you're saying we don't need this mechanical thing, like crude mechanical buildings like men would use. I get, what? I get it, Iru, and that honestly makes a lot more sense to me. It's accomplishing essentially the same thing, but taking the utter crudeness of our methodologies out of it and adding a more divine touch, if you will, which is amazing. Wow.
It's almost like I was just going to say, it's almost like the matter. It's the whole creation is in the nature of matter itself as it progresses in these levels of density, that it generates its realm. It's incredible. It, instead of something constructed, right? It's just part of nature itself. It's quite incredible. That I guess
astounding. So beautiful presentation, Iru. Wow.
Thank you.
I'm blown away.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I know that, I have also a lot of electrical things presenting as electrical earthquakes, and, a lot of things. So I hope the people out there understand, because you, Bob, has like antibody for my English. So that is why you understand me. But I know as long the presentation goes, I start to mess around with English.
Sounds
words.
really good. I think it was very easy to follow. Iru, the one question for you, so you're talking about layers going up, going down. What's the deal?
Well, I don't know what is going down, but we have experience. We can have things that happen in our underground based on electricity, like earthquakes and secondary bounces and things like that. For example, the Thunderbolt project guys, they show a lot of experiment that you can conduct electricity underneath. I mean, you see this here, and you assume that it's only happened in this part of the jar, right? But no, it's also happening underneath this.
It's getting in it.
Yeah, you can see here in this side view. So you can have a lot of explanation based on electricity for earthquakes, for comets, for moon craters. I have a complete presentation based on the electrical universe. Not just explanation, but also to show the behavior on labs.
Some people in Brazil are saying that the plasma coming in and leaking from the top and hitting the earth could generate like metal ores, like veins of steel, or not steel, of iron, that have been found to be not oxidized, which is very odd. They cannot, apparently the ball model cannot explain why can you have these big pieces of iron with no oxidation in their
One thing, Rodrigo, that you mentioned going down, and we had a guest, his name was Chris Monk Sele.
Right.
And he talked about, when they were digging down, that when they hit this 8 or 9 mile limit down, that they were actually coming into some sort of slurry that because of the pressure that's on it, it caused it to change state and become harder than anything that, mankind had ever encountered. And I don't want to screw it up by misdescribing it, but I'll try and pull that out maybe my next show, his exact description of its chemical composition. But I do remember him saying that it came out in some form of a slurry when they relieved the pressure off of it, which I found very interesting. And again, this would be consistent with this type of natural type of creation, right? In other words, how God would create this rather than, crude man.
And remember that for creating the stars, artificial, quote unquote, stars, you also need a liquid. You also need a medium to create this luminescence point of light. And I have
totally
it
do
also
it. At the very least, you can totally do that. That's what
exactly.
Right?
And then you have the total field that represents, our magnetic field of existence, and you can prove that with ferrocells and magnetic and magnets, underneath this ferrocell to see really the torus field of a magnetic field. So it's all there.
Incredible.
It's all there. The problem is that when Newton and all these guys, occultist guys, came across trying to explain what happened up there, they don't, at that time, when Newton supposedly get born and develop his theories, they don't know nothing about electricity. So they present a model. They present a model
right.
without taking into consideration electricity. So
no, they didn't even know it's there. Yeah,
exactly. So 300 years later, Huygens, Ampere, all these guys came across with electricity, and they say, well, we can explain everything with electricity, but we have been the last 300 years trying to kill people, to trying to put this concept of gravity in his mind, and now we have all the answer via electricity and magnetism. So what we're gonna do? So it's a crazy world. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But they had to keep gravity because of the ball, right?
Yes.
Well, yes and no. And obviously we have a little different opinion on what gravity is and how it manifests.
Yeah,
but
right.
regardless, because in my opinion, we need gravity just as much in the flat Earth as you do on a ball Earth. The problem with the way that they use it in the ball Earth cosmology or the heliocentric cosmology is, they're saying, well, this incredibly weak force is, somehow powerful enough to keep the Earth in orbit around the sun and the ISS. It's all nonsense. It does not have that type of attractive. It's a small bias, and it is an incoherent type of magnetic field. This is exactly what how you could describe gravity. In other words, like I've been saying all this time, whatever you want to call it, this acceleration, whatever it is more of an electrical or electromagnetic type of phenomenon. And I firmly believe that without any doubt whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned the word gravity because, I mean, in the Ball model, right, in their model, and that Newtonian kind of gravity, which is very different than what you're getting at here, which is much more into, what we know nowadays.
Yeah, the Einstein description of gravity is just nonsense. It's bullshit.
Yeah, completely, man. It's and in my presentation, I have this tiny video that Zach
but all I had was
present to the community, and here you can see how changing polarity, you can change the orientations and things like that. So when you start to put, like I said before, when you start to put all together, you can see how electrical fields and magnetic fields is more a nature that can explain everything,
I agree. I recognize that room. Hey, I'm right next to that room.
Oh man,
this was shot in my house.
Your house.
Yeah, that's my house. That's funny. Yeah. Zach did that here.
So what's going on here? What's actually going on here in this experiment here, or demonstration?
You have Bob, you can explain it.
Okay, what's happening is Zach is taking an electrostatic generator, and he is putting one polarity on the top, one polarity on the bottom, and it's a Van der Graaf generator is what it's actually called. And he's turning it on, and he's basically causing a static attraction, to one plate or the other. And if you reverse those polarities, it will change the attractive capabilities. So it was just something that he was demonstrating with the Van der Graaf generator. Because he's doing all these, electrical type of experiments here and magnetic type of experiments and showing the interaction between the two.
Yeah, it's almost like an inverted gravity that happens here with this with this piece of paper, if that's what it is.
Yeah, but instead of it necessarily being a charge potential, which I have kind of advocated for quite a while, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm seeing that it's more of an incoherent magnetic field, and that's something I'll have to explain on a different episode of Globebusters. But that in and of itself, which was explained to me by my good friend, the PhD electrical engineer, when he explained it, wow, did it make a lot of sense? But we'll go there on another episode.
You wanna stop sharing?
Sure. And then I have
can I make a couple of points about inversions that I think it's quite odd, because I'm not sure there is a physiological condition where the person sees upside down or the world seems upside down, but we know that in order to see what we see, things are getting inverted, right? We get these inverted images coming upside down, right? It's odd. I'm just saying there's something happens in the eye that things get inverted. We get things upside down. And there's these stories from Aboriginal indigenous cultures in the Amazon. They talk about some of the cataclysms or some of the transformations of the world. There's this upside down thing that can happen where basically it's almost like if you get this you turned it upside down. Okay, so then suddenly the floor will be up. But physically in the whole thing, that's kind of part of their myths. I don't know if it's, I don't know where it comes from, but it is odd. It's almost like, like let's reshuffle this thing and start over. Then then the ground will go up and then everything will get reshuffled. I mean, that's kind of their idea. It's just quite striking transformation. Yep. Wow.
Okay, Iro, I'm going to cut the screen share. And I'm going to whip over to my screen share. Ben has a video. We're definitely at the end of the show, guys, but I do want to show Ben's 5-minute video that he just got rendered. So let me go ahead and share the correct screen here with you guys, and you should be able to see that. And then let me get the link to Ben's video. Bada bing. There it is. Okay. So, Ben, do you want to give us any introduction on this before I play it?
No, I just want to say thanks to Wide Awake. And I hopefully I didn't mess up anything. I have a chance to review it too well, but I hope you enjoyed it, everybody.
Okay. Well, we'll forgive you if you did, so no problem. And before I play that, Iro, dude, absolutely fantastic presentation. I want to elaborate on this more. I definitely want to move forward with it because this is something that, as far as a progression of logic into how this model works, makes perfect sense. And I think that, now that I'm understanding where you're going with this, I can kind of help, clarify it to our viewers. But, for those of you that may not have understood it fully, I did. And we're going to do this, where everybody can get it because it is, wow. Brilliant. It's nothing short of brilliant. Iro, I love the way your mind works, dude.
Amen. Thank you.
Also, I think this is the kind of thing that you're so familiar with this explanation that you crafted. It's is a really good hypothesis for how things work. It's the kind of thing that you would put in a textbook and say, this is really a possibility.
And have in mind that when I explain this in Spanish, it's like really most understanding and with a lot of more
developed
explanation. For me, explaining in English is a little difficult, so that is why I really appreciate that someone like Bob trying to put all together. And of course you have all my material to uses, and anyone out there, my channel is called Null for Everyone because all my material is free for everyone. So I mean, anyone who wants my presentation with all this video, I can send it, no problem. In fact, in Dallas conference, a guy that at the time of the dinner, he came to me, Jack bring a guy to me to give some video, and then I didn't see again, so I can send it. So if that guy is listening right now, please contact me, and I send, because I say like I'm gonna bring my computer, my notebook, and I'm going to give the files, and then I didn't do it, and I forget, and at 4 a.m. in the morning I take the flight to return to Argentina, so I cannot do. I didn't do that, and
okay.
What
if you're talking about Alex by any chance? Alex, the guy that has the terabytes and terabytes of archived stuff. Wonder if you're talking about him.
Well, it could be. I mean, it's out there for everyone, and I really appreciate your, honest consideration and your words. And please, use my material. Ask me whatever you want, because I really like to share this with, people that understand the flat Earth model and trying to put all together. And that's the idea.
I wonder if, Bob, this wouldn't be something that is right up the alley of Sandor and some of the other people at FEIC, in that you could make a bridge between the argument and the hypothesis that Ido is going with the different elements and how it comes together. And they can then inquire into it and come up with it can even be a presentation later that we all could work with, because there's highly capable people there that really know the flight, exactly what you just said, Ido.
I think absolutely. I know everybody in FEIC watches this show, and so I will be anxious to see the chatter in the FEIC Skype group afterwards. But this is exactly the kind of stuff that we want to look into and research. And Iru has really done some groundbreaking work on this. And I mean, I get it. I totally get where he came from. I was fascinated when he presented this, in Dallas, and that's why I wanted to cover it more today. But yikes, good stuff, man.
There's so many aspects that if Ido, this can be organized in an English presentation or a scripted kind of video.
That is your really part, man.
Well, if we can talk about or get the footage, and with I'll be glad to do it. I'll be happy to do it and make sure that it has all the elements that are needed for all the parts. Absolutely, it's something worth pursuing, of course.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and play Ben's video, and then we will wrap it up. So this is a 4-minute video that Ben just finished rendering. And it highlights Dave Wide Awake's work. And here we go, guys. Let's give it a listen.
Welcome, everyone. The conference season is over, and I'm back doing what I love. For this video, we're going to analyze some amazing new footage from Wide Awake taken off of the western coast of Florida. It's probably Wide Awake's best footage to date. The foundation of the flat Earth is observable, testable, and repeatable experiments that everyone can perform, and the Bible agrees. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. You don't have to be a Christian to know that's excellent advice for everyone, and that is exactly where our phony mainstream science has failed humanity. And that's what we're going to do today. Prove all things. You're going to see unequivocal proof that there is no curvature, ergo, the Earth is flat. We're going to use both the distance to the horizon and the target hidden height calculations to debunk the globe myth today. My friend Wide Awake's camera was only 5 feet above the water. Here is Wide Awake's cell phone footage capturing the fact that he was indeed filming the Cutter Rock bird rack as shown on the screen of the Nikon P1000, which we'll be taking a much closer look at. I've included Wide Awake's camera coordinates as well. I grabbed the coordinates of Cutter Rock from this government brochure. Like all of the bird racks, Cutter Rock is only 16 feet high. According to Google Earth, Cutter Rock was a huge 11.22 miles away from Wide Awake. Even this sunset footage shouldn't be possible on the globe. Do you think you'd see the reflection of the sun like this on bendy water and over curvature humps? And we can also use the sunlight reflection on the water to mark the apparent horizon as well. But let's get to the evidence. Let's freeze the frame here. That is Cutter Rock on the left, a tiny boat on the right, and a closer boat in front. The footage is just awesome. Let's freeze it again. This is at full zoom on the P1000. If you remember, Cutter Rock was 11.22 miles away from the camera. What I also love about this frame is the tiny boat next to Cutter Rock. The boat appears to be even further than 11.22 miles because the base of the boat is higher perspectively than the base of Cutter Rock. Look at how tiny that boat is. Let's first look at the target hidden height calculation. According to the globe math, 48 feet should be hidden behind the curvature. In other words, this is what it should roughly look like if we lived on an imaginary globe. But we don't see that curvature hump in any manner, and there is no distortion accounting for selective curvature hopping mirages. But the globe horizon test is my favorite. Under the globe model, at an observation height of 5 feet, the horizon could not be further than a mere 2.7 miles. But the actual apparent horizon here is further than 12 miles. There's simply no way that this footage is possible on a globe. Did the huge bulge of water in front of the bird rack magically and selectively disappear and then reappear miles beyond the rack, all without affecting the rack itself? The globe claim is nonsense. The evidence is overwhelming. We don't live on a spinning ball, vortexing through the vacuum of space at millions of miles per hour. The Earth is flat and stationary. And the truth is the only way that we can all be free. So please, share it everywhere you can because our time is limited. I don't think taboo conspiracy is going to be considered commercially viable. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah. Amen to that. That's another thing we need to, keep in mind. YouTube has set the stage to delete us all. And,
it's frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Does Globebusters have an alternative route yet? Like BitChute or something?
I have a few different accounts set up on different platforms. However, I'm not exactly sure which one we're going to commit to. I also have other channels as well on Globebusters. We have the Globebusters 2, Globebusters 24/7, etc. But I think if they start taking us down, they're going to take us all down. And again, this should tell people something. If you are on the fence, you have to ask yourself why. Why, if Flat Earth is such a silly thing, why is it such a threat to the powers that be where they literally have to destroy their own revenues and completely take down their platform for free speech to hide a bunch of silly flat earthers, right? Think about that, people. So, all right. Okay, so I think that will probably be it for a show. Today we've got, I had a few other things I'll cover, but I'll cover them next week.
I want to see that projection in the Middle Earth that you mentioned before. That's a glass dome thing with you can project an image, something like that. You talk about it.
What Chris Pontius had with the star in the middle.
Oh, that?
Yeah, I never saw that.
Oh, you didn't see it?
No, I didn't
Alright.
see it.
Let's.
You no. Okay. You show maybe when I was outside my house and.
Okay. Here, I'll just go ahead and play it. I'll just play the video. It's
Okay.
only 2.5 minutes.
Okay,
Here we go.
play the video and then without sound if you want.
Yeah, this is what I said that you have
Oh, there
modeled
it
as
is
well
again.
in your maybe you didn't hear that. That's why I didn't comment because it's similar to the model that you made with the sun going over the kind of glass just like this and the sun being projected from the inside in different positions. But this is kind of like an actual demonstration of how that would work.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and put the sound on really quick. I think it's just us chattering.
Oh,
about
there it is again. Whoa, look at that.
Whoa, you're right in
It's
there.
like you got your hand behind it.
It's taking the light and
No
it's floating right
way.
here in front of me.
Yeah.
You see it?
Wow.
Yeah, you can see it from every angle.
Every angle.
That's it,
Wow.
Cammy.
Around out here,
This is
I
it.
see the whole-
Unbelievable.
So
That is
the
so-
lights.
Look at this.
Wow.
Floating it. It's just floating there.
Oh, what is there's a hologram. There's another hologram down there.
Wait, keep doing it, Chris. Keep doing it.
Right here.
Oh, yeah.
See my,
It's just
trying to
what you're
And then it
doing.
goes away. You got to be at the.
Right there.
Wow.
And I
Stays
said,
there.
that's
what the sun and moon are doing.
Yeah.
apparently
It's
so.
the apparent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly, gentlemen. Oh, yeah.
The
This is so
picture,
cool.
though.
It's the apparent.
So you can obviously tell a bunch of nerds in utter amazement over this, but this is just so cool, because it's nothing more than a clear plastic parabola, and we'll show at the end here that this star that it's projecting out holographically is just an ornament on the wall. It's a light and it's lit up. But the astounding thing about it is, like, the further you get away from this thing, the more 3D it becomes. I mean, it's absolutely astounding, the clarity and how perfectly you can see it, seemingly just hanging there in space. It's absolutely bizarre, and it doesn't matter what angle you look at it from. You get this amazing representation of the star on the wall, and
I wonder what happens if you turn this to the sky at night and what would happen. I'm just curious if there are other lights.
There is also the other technology called helioprojection that you can project on the gas. So helium gas or vaporized water, things like that. So when you put all together, for example, the presentation that I did, and you start seeing will be really nice to have a rocket up there with the special conditions on the camera to show if there is possible to be the density enough to project light, or maybe that medium that is electrical insulator maybe doesn't even allow to project light. I don't know, I just paraphrasing it, but you need a medium all the time. You need some kind of medium. There is no emptiness, vacuum. You cannot have properties there is no medium, that at least is all things that you're trying to prove. You always need some kind of medium.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and then there it is hanging on the wall back there. And that's all it is. And, from that, we get this. It's just mind-boggling.
Nice. Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Well, I'll go around one more time, and we'll let you guys have your last words. And Rodrigo, we will start with you. You have anything coming up this week that is of interest to anyone?
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Ido, for a wonderful presentation, and Ben for incredible video, just hammering the evidence, and it's great. Again, addition to your wonderful videos, and I'm just moving on with the work, things to translate for the Brazilians, a bunch of things that I have to finish. So hopefully, I try to take things as they come to me, and just recently, like I said, Ben's video caught my eye because it's just so direct and deals with questions that people are having in Brazil. And so I'm going to try to dub that. And it's been fun. I'm not sure you guys seen the Jaron translation I did in Portuguese, his film NASA Going Nowhere Since 1958. And I ended up at the end, I got into dubbing the presidents, but in the kind of intonation and so on. And that was funny. That was fun work, and it's been well received. People like it. I put some of the clips of the dubbing, and I'll try to do more of that. It's cool. So, yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing that, Rodrigo. You're definitely helping out the community in so many ways. You just,
thank you.
You are a gem. All right. Okay. And next up, Ben, what's going on with you other than taking care of your new little one and all the other fun stuff that goes with that?
Yeah, I got to take the kids to see Frozen or something today, so I got to go do that. But I did want to say thank you, Bob. Thank you, Iru. Wonderful presentation. Thank you, Rodrigo, for your kind words. Bob and I are both trying to work on the Globebusters Pro again. We have an excellent interview coming up on Monday. I hope everything goes well with that, because I'd really like to start sharing that with everybody. So that's what my current hope is and what I want to work on. So thank you, everybody.
Yep. Beautiful. Okay. And last but certainly not least, Iru, what do you got coming up down there in Argentina?
Well, I'm trying to get back to my work and finish, things to survive in terms of my work. And of course, I keep working on the Flat Earth. I want to translate my presentation that I made on Dallas and share as a video in my new English channel that is going to be able, like the next week, I'm going to be officially opening the new YouTube channel for English community, because I really like to share my information with all the Spanish English community. And then I'm start to prepare the next conference in Madrid that is going to take place 25 of January in Madrid. And for the first time ever, we're going to have this guy that became a friend of mine, which is a commercial pilot, giving a presentation and talking about how they are indoctrinated to believe in the globe Earth, but they never take into consideration. So it's going to be really, really good times, because first of all, it's going to be in the capital city of Spain. Second of all, it's going to be, we're going to trying to achieve 500 people there, not just because the price of the end of the ticket is only 15 euros, because it's just for cover my flight ticket and another flight ticket for a physicist guy that is going to give a presentation, and it came from Argentina, so we need to pay this time 2 flight ticket, and then the rest is just for some food to give to the people that is going to come to the conference, and some coffee and all the technical stuff that you need to rent. But the special thing this time is that we're going to have a physicist give a presentation, and also a commercial pilot. And that is going to be like the first time ever to do that. Some commercial pilot is going to, he's inactive right now. So
that's awesome.
I mean, he's not he's not playing.
It's not one of those 2 guys that he's still flying, you say?
Yeah, it's still flying. He's the guy who is the guy who sent me. Yeah, he's one of those guys that sent me that video from the pilot.
So an airliner pilot. Wow. That's awesome. Beautiful. Okay. Well, super. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And hopefully maybe Rodrigo will translate that to English or something when it comes out. Who knows?
Who knows? If you like me to help you with this, if you have a schedule when you need to finish your presentation, and you have it in Spanish.
In fact, you're gonna be invited, man. Of course.
No, I mean, if what you're saying about your English presentation for your English channel, right? If you like me to get
yeah.
If you need any help with that, let me know. But do let me know, and let me know when you would like to finish, because then I go for it for you.
Okay,
right.
man. Okay, but my English, I think my English is perfect right now. So.
You can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're doing great on your English. You have gotten so much better since you joined us a couple years ago.
Yeah, at least I get better every day. That is my only, console. I don't know which is the name of in English of consuelo. I don't know what is
Yes,
that,
consolation.
the word.
Consolation.
Consolation. Yeah,
Yep.
that's my consolation. I learn
Awesome.
a few words every day.
There you go. All right, guys. All right, so we're going to call that a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us Thanks for joining us this week. I'll try and spit it out there. And we will be back next week. Hopefully, Jaron will be back with us and feeling better. Until then, keep your prayers with him and your thoughts with him, because we all need support in times like this for sure. So we'll catch you guys next week. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace. Cheers.